Any member of the public also has the right to make an audio or video recording of an open session of a public meeting. A member of the public who wishes to record a meeting must first notify the chair and must comply with reasonable requirements requiring audio or video equipment established by the chair so as not to interfere with the meeting. The chair is required to inform other attendees of such recording at the beginning of the meeting. We are being recorded by Mr. White for the purposes of televising the meeting on WCTV. And that'll be paid. Roll call, Mr. Trudell, Mr. Gray, and Ms. Chicken. Not here. Okay, so we have first order of business tonight is a public hearing. Need a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Mrs. Bronk, motion by Mrs. Bronk, seconded by Mr. McDonald. First off, is there anyone on the public who would like to address the body? Pardon? We have no one who wishes to address the body in the public hearing. The reason why I call the public hearing, so everybody knows, the charter really requires, we receive the budget on the 15th of December, and I'm supposed to, the chairman is supposed to immediately call for a public hearing within, you have to post it within 2 weeks. And basically, what it comes down to, to put a calendar to, we're supposed to have a meeting by the 31st of December. Obviously, there was so much that was occurring that was in the town accountant's office, also in the town administrator's office. It was extremely difficult to do, and we didn't really have any final numbers. We were unable at that point to get our free cash number, and we were trying to also put out the tax rate. So I postponed it for 30 days. I guess historically there has also been a public hearing held at the close of the warrant, or prior to the close of the warrant. We will also have a public hearing at that time. All right, we'll not change that condition because that's the chance for the public to put information into it. I have no agenda for that. I'm looking to the former chairman. What's my next step on the public meeting?
You close it.
She closed it.
There's nobody right. Need a motion to close?
I'll make that motion.
Second. Mr. Paulson, seconded by Mr. Camerano. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is closed. It's 7:00.
That's quick. One more time.
No, it's supposed to be. Town Administrator's report, Mr. Andrews. Good evening.
Mr. Chairman, good evening to you, and thank the board and the committee for my participation at the last Wednesday evening joint presentation. I want to thank the committee for participating at the joint meeting between the school committee and the board of selectmen last Wednesday, January 18th. I thought it was a pretty productive meeting, and just from a questions and answers point. As you know, and I think you said it from the beginning, the December 15th submission required by Article 5 by the town administrator is a starting point. And that's what we have in this budget that's before you this evening. You also have, and we can go through it, Mr. Sullivan has done a fine job. We have the cherry sheet that was released by the governor's office this afternoon that dovetails into what we all received as kind of a heads up at the Massachusetts Municipal Association meeting last Friday and Saturday. So rather than hand out that documentation, we have in front of you a cherry sheet that indicates that we are pretty much on target. I think the Mayor of Amesbury said it very in a salient and key way, that the governor's House 1 submission, the good news about it is that there's no bad news with regards to cuts to local aid. They possibly could come at that particular juncture. I will be working, as you know, with the Board of Selectmen and this committee very hard to not only produce documentation and testimony to the House Ways and Means Committee which will be next up in the process, but also to the Senate Ways and Means Committee, urging for a joint resolution a la last year when cities and towns were notified before town meeting where local aid resolution numbers were agreed to in advance of the final completion of the House budget and the Senate budget. And that's something that I heard you mention protocol regarding public hearing. That's pretty much what, in my early years, my tenure in the legislature, what they would do is give cities and towns a heads up as to where the local aid numbers are. All told, when we look at the net ups and downs on the cherry sheet, we're down off of our projections $13,879, and we can provide further analysis for the committee if you'd like. But pretty much local aid, unrestricted local aid for cities and towns remain at the level that we received last year. And that's notwithstanding the additional aid that we got, if you recall, the extra $120,000 that the town got, actually it's $120,001, Mr. Chairman, that we got as a result of the state looking at its revenue and its expenditures through their fiscal year, which would have ended June 30, 2011, and then they did reward cities and towns with 1/2 of what was left over in residual accounts or leftover residual dollars to the tune of $65 million, and that's where we got that additional slug of money. So what you have before you is the starting point, and once again, the net impact to the town of Wareham's budget is negligible to the extent that we'll have to make an adjustment for $13,879. Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to go through. You've all seen the PowerPoints. You've all seen the budget message. I'm happy to provide you with any additional detail, or if you want to go through other aspects of the budget, that's fine. I'm happy to answer any questions and provide answers to you, if not tonight, as soon as we can tomorrow. You also have before you, by provision in the charter, under Article 6, Division 1, Article 6, an organizational chart for your urging. We updated the chart, and you have the organizational chart of the town. We will endeavor to keep it updated, and that's something that is an ongoing process as people come and go within departments. And additionally, under, once again, per Division 1, Article 6, you have a 5-year revenue and expenditure forecast. And I would, once again, ask you to take a look at it. We were very modest with our projections, particularly as it related to state aid and other revenue sources. If you can just harken back to one aspect of the budget that used to be a pretty robust area of revenue, which would be the motor vehicle excise tax return to the town. In good economic times, people buy vehicles. And you know what? When they buy them and register them in town, we receive revenue back. Mr. Sullivan has done analysis that has indicated that these days pretty much people driving around as I am with a 2000 Camry and fixing the muffler and getting a tune-up or putting tires on the car and making certain that they can make it through, at least through the life of the vehicle. So that's one area we're going to be studying this. I will also just quickly mention that GASB, the Governmental Auditing Standards Board, are looking at that type of analysis as something not all municipal officials across the country are embracing it. There's a comment period that's being done between now and March, but it's something that the Governmental Auditing Standards Board are encouraging that we have better grasp on some of our projections that you can then trend and obviously keep active in your budget compilation process, if you will, of revenue sources and other places. We've been very conservative with our budget estimates. As I said, we're within $13,000+ on the state aid, and that's the governor's submission in House 1 that was released today. We'll be monitoring the process very closely with the House and the Senate, and once again urging for some type of joint resolution. Built into this budget in the lines, so you can clearly see where we put the meals tax for capital purchases. You will see that we have those located in various departments, so you can see what department is where the meals tax is being paid from. That includes a outlay for a ambulance for $150,000. We might have to adjust that a little bit. We did provide $100,000 for the school district, $75,000 for parking program that was presented to this committee back last spring. We put aside $36,000 plus for defibrillators for police department, and $25,000 for the onset bathhouse pavilion study that's built into the budget, and that's the lion's share of the meals tax. You all at the last meeting were informed, as I was, by Mr. Sullivan, that our projections on the meals tax is running at 98%.
Just under 99%.
Just under 99%, so that we fully anticipate that those dollars are real, going into the right places for capital outlay in the fiscal 2013 budget. I will point out to you, as we did talk about in the PowerPoint just real quick, we know some of our fixed costs as other municipalities are grappling with the same issues, that our funding of our retirement contribution went up 16.74%, or $392,113 per the requirement of the county retirement system. We know that our healthcare costs went up by 28% to the tune of $1,180,765. Our funding of our debt service went up by $272,575. Once again, there are a couple of new initiatives in the budget that I'm happy to go over if you like, Mr. Chairman. I know this committee has been very supportive of looking at ways to provide better municipal personnel services. There's a position that I'd like to reactivate in the budget for $50,000. And keeping also with that same thinking, working with the treasurer collector and town accounting, we'll be looking for additional financial services dollars in the vicinity of $25,000. And that's per the written recommendations of the Massachusetts Department of Revenue report from 2010, that we need to bolster the financial services area of the town, and that's why those dollars are being projected in those areas. And I'm happy to answer any questions or go over any items. Mr. Sullivan is here to just want to also mention that once again, we're budgeting 1% below what we think our projected revenues are locally, to stay on track, and we have levied to the maximum allowable levy limit under Proposition 2.5. We have funded our collective bargaining agreements thus far. We've settled 9 out of 11 contracts through fiscal 2011. We're negotiating in fiscal 2012. Massachusetts general law only allows municipalities to negotiate up to 3-year agreements, so we are working on that. That process has begun. We funded the stabilization fund at $200,000 this year, up from last year at $150,000, so an additional $50,000, or a 25% increase for the town. And so those are the highlights. I'm happy to answer any questions or get into any type of discussion that the chairman and the committee would like to get into.
You did jump my agenda. It's okay.
I didn't? Oh, I'm sorry.
You gave us the budget update. For the committee members' edification, I asked on Monday for both the 5-year plan and the personnel chart, particularly personnel chart, because it came up a couple of times as to these issues that were in the budget that have been authorized and not filled, etc. So that both of these were done for our deliberations. All right. I will ask you one quick question on this, and then I'd like to get back to my original. I noticed that in the subsequent years, you're showing a growing deficit based on your numbers here. Years 14, 15, 16, 17 are showing deficits running from, well, it starts out at 0 in 13, but then it goes to almost $3 million. Am I looking at this correctly?
What page are you on, Mr. Chairman? I know.
Page 7 and 7.
Yeah,
So you're
revenue.
showing a potential deficit going forward.
Correct.
Each year based on the revenues coming in and what our expenditures are. All right, I'm not gonna try to get into this tonight. I think we all need to take a good hard look at this. I'll schedule it for our next, the FinCom's next meeting, at which point we can discuss it and have Tom administrator back at some point, if we have questions. But I don't, tonight's too soon. I could spend probably the next hour going through this, I would like to go back to the original, agenda, which was, start out with the, where we stand on the financial, 2012 financial reports. And we started one in November. Obviously, we're looking for December, as quickly as possible. And then also you scheduled a mid-year audit, and we were wondering when we would expect to see that report come from Powers and Sullivan. So if you address both those issues, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, you're getting a little bit ahead, if I could, Mr. Chairman, through you to the committee. I did announce at the December 14th meeting with Powers and Sullivan that I thought it would be good to have a 6-month look at the mid-year point. We talked about it also, I think, at one subsequent meeting of the Finance Committee. Mr. Justin Cole is working with Mr. Foster to basically get in a position so we can close down December and into January. Once we have that certification, I will ask Jim Powers from Powers and Sullivan to schedule a team in. I'll keep the committee updated, as well as the Board of Selectmen, for a mid-year look. And that was projected at that December meeting to be sometime in late February, early March. That's what we're shooting for. Because of scheduling, the auditors have to, obviously do that at least 4 to 6 weeks in advance. So you will be receiving the December reports that will be compiled and sent to the committee, both electronically and in hard copy form, with regards to that December the 31st cutoff date. And then we will schedule in the independent auditors at a date set, probably late February, like I said, the first week in March.
Okay, so we will receive December reports first, and then they'll,
That's correct.
Mr. Paulson?
You mentioned earlier in your presentation that the DOR, and I'm kind of curious about something, because the DOR had a variety of different recommendations, and it's actually to the chairman's point here. One of their recommendations, one of their strongest recommendations, was that we do a monthly, as I recall, monthly cash reconciliation, that they considered that to be of paramount importance, my expression, not theirs necessarily. And so I'm wondering where that stands. I'm just curious.
Well, we have the treasurer collector here, who I'm sure can help us with that. I know, John, I don't mean to put you on the spot and get the cameras going here, but
The treasurer's cash is reconciled to the bank statements as of December 31st. There are no accounting numbers as of this date. They still need to make the adjusting entries from last July 1st to bring the numbers forward. But he's working on that, and that should be done within 2 weeks, he said.
Done within 2 weeks through and including with current time, is that?
Through December.
Okay.
if I could, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Obviously, this is a key to the contract that I have with Bay State Municipal Accounting. Hits that right on the head, that we want to get to that monthly reconciliation process and really have it as one of the regular procedures that would be worked on between the treasurer collector and the town accountant on a monthly basis. And John, what's it like on revenue? 15 days into the next month?
Yeah, we wait for our files, our electronic files to come back from the banks. It's usually 2 weeks into the month. We have it in between the 15th and the 20th. Our cash is reconciled, and at the same time they can close their cash out right after the end of the month. So a couple weeks into the next month, you should have cash reconciled normally.
Camera on. Don?
No questions.
I thought you
I just want to follow up, so you're saying at this point, we're not doing monthly reconciliations to the accountant? That's as simple as what I'm asking.
To the treasurer, to the accountant? No.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could also, that's a #1 top priority, and obviously it will be done. He has a number of entries, as you know, to be made, and to be completed. And that will be a regular procedure. There will be a policy brought in not only to the Board of Selectmen, but I'll bring it before you, and we'll have it all documented out as to how that process is working. And once again, the idea here was to get that 6-month period completed and bring in the independent auditors and turn over those those work papers to the auditors and let them give us their opinion back as to where things stand for the fiscal year.
When you say that the audit will be completed the cash reconciliations will be completed in 2 weeks, is that for each of the months, or is that just for the first 6 months?
For the six months, we'll be up to speed in that period.
Will each month be reconciled?
Yes.
Okay. Three members, Mr. McDonald?
Well, I got a stack. I mean, I have to remind myself sometimes that I'm not getting paid to do this, because I go back to when I spent 29 years doing this, so I made a book about this thick, and now I've kind of condensed it into 2 pages, if you don't mind. First thing I want to say is that, I was there for the presentation, and I want to tell you right now, it's a good presentation, but I got a real problem when you put on there that we had a clean financial audit for fiscal 2011. We did not have a clean financial audit. We had.
Can we come through the chair, please?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I would
I would
respect.
ask that you may, please let's not forget our rules, okay?
I'm sorry.
So to do
I
that
apologize.
sometimes, but.
I apologize. I would respectfully ask for that to change to a clean audit opinion or to be removed, because we were far from a clean audit. We had 12 pages of material weaknesses. And as far as I know at this point, I know that we're addressing them as we go along, but I would really strongly urge that to the selectmen and to everyone else that we need to look into the policies to make sure that this doesn't happen again, and also to the written procedures. And maybe get an update from our town accountant at some point to the finance committee that we're doing this, because whether or not we hear we're doing it or not, I'd like to see evidence that we're doing it, because we've been through 2 years of this, or 3 years, I guess, well, 2 years basically at this point, and I just really would like to see this not happen again.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, may I respond?
Yes, you may.
I'm sorry about that.
No,
Go ahead.
Mr. Rangers up the floor.
Let's be clear what happened with the audit, because we're all there on December 14th, Larry. We've got a clean audit opinion on our financial statements.
Yes.
That means that it's a clean audit opinion. So I'm not changing anything. You can change it if you want.
Well, you say clean financial audit.
Clean
not
financial
opinion,
audit
Not an opinion.
of the financial
audit.
statements, which is, if I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, you
which
may.
is the key ingredient behind getting us back on fiscal recovery. Because for the first time, what that means, and somebody else can tell me if they have a different opinion about it, it means that our financial statements, we had supporting documentation for all of the financial statements that we had, and the independent auditors were able to find their way through those work papers to make an opinion, to opine on the results of what happened in that audit period. Okay? Jim Powers was very clear, Larry. He said, you don't have a clean audit on the things that you have to get done. And that's going to be in a management letter. I think cities and towns, we should challenge the auditors to find areas that we could do better in and to provide better results in. But, and I'll send you the documentation from Jim Powers if you like. But it's my PowerPoint, and that's just the way it is.
Well,
On the second part, I'll just say this to you, that once you receive a clean financial audit, a result of it is that the Department of Revenue looks at that audit and other financial documentation through the recap sheet, and they make an opinion of whether or not, how things stand. And what they said was the monies were left in the general fund, and then what they said was a week or so later, that came out to be, in terms of free cash, $309,000, certified by the Massachusetts Department of Revenue. That's a clear record that is made for fiscal year ending 2011, and we intend to do better in fiscal 2012. That's the basis of the recovery plan.
Do I get a respond?
Mr. McDonald.
Thank you. Again, I sat there and I asked the question specifically to Mr. Powers. I said, how do you get from 12 pages of material weaknesses to a clean audit? He said, we did a cash proof of the cash accounts, and we were comfortable with the balances, and that's why you have clean audit opinion. We still have 12 pages, so you're right, it's yours, but I disagree with saying that we had a clean financial audit. We had a clean financial audit opinion. We have several things to work on, so we are far from having a clean financial audit. The other thing is, since you brought it up, the letter, I've got a copy of it, free cash was approved for Wareham. Based on an unaudited balance sheet submitted, they approved our free cash. And my question is, I remember before I got on this committee, or right as I got on the committee, the letter from the DOR stated they would not certify our free cash again without audited financial statements. So I'm curious why they made that change. Do you know, or is there, evidence why they would certify our free cash after they said they wouldn't?
Mr. Chairman,
Answer the question.
thank you. The documentation that was provided in the clean financial audit of the financial statements and the subsequent work papers that Mr. Cole worked on and Mr. Foster, the assessor's office, provided documentation to the Department of Revenue that we had met all of the items that were on that list. And that included a balance sheet, that included having the clean set of audited financial statements. They may not have been in final form, but it was enough documentation for them to certify our free cash at $309,000. I'm not speaking for them. Once again, they would not have put that in writing to us, Larry, if they didn't find enough supporting evidence to provide us with $309,000 of good news.
Well,
So we understand it, but you are saying that it was not a final audit, which is one of the reasons why on the budgets that we have, et cetera, we do not have the final 2011 numbers.
I have bound copies of the final audit in my office. I'm happy to provide them to the Finance
All
Committee.
right, will our budget schedules be updated with the final numbers?
That is correct, yes.
And when will we have that? Will we have that for our next meeting, which is probably next week?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure I can make that assessment for next week, but I'll ask Mr. Cole to work on that and to get documentation to you.
I ask that because it's extremely important to our deliberations. We're trying to understand, not just what was appropriated, but also what was spent. All right, it's very difficult to do it when you don't have the actual numbers from the prior 2 years. And we understand you're only required to give us 1 year, so we need at least that number when we go back to our other documents to
Sure.
find out the other number.
I understand.
That's our problem.
Absolutely.
But we need that as fast as we can get it because time's running out. We only have 10 weeks. Mr. Paulson?
Well, Donna had a question first.
No, I'll
No, I'm sorry.
let you go, go ahead.
So you say, through you, Mr. Chairman, that you have the final 2011 audit in your office. So I have 2 questions, but they're joined at the hip. If you have the final 2011 audit, and we have a preliminary audit, are there any significant differences between the draft that we have here and the final that you have? Okay, that's question number 1. The second question is, if you do have the final audit there, and we're having a public hearing here for the people who are here and the people at home, and for ourselves, why don't we have that here tonight, if you have the final?
Chairman, I'll send Mr. Zalman over to pick him up from the office if need be. There is no substantive difference between the reports that were provided by Mr. Powers at his presentation on December 14th, including items in the management line. It pretty much is, that's pretty much what it is. So, I think they went out electronically to members of the committee
No.
and to the
we
board of
did not.
selectmen?
No, we did not have the finals.
No, we don't.
Okay, well,
Because they should have come to me and I would have distributed
we'll get them
everybody.
out to you in the morning. I mean,
Unless the system crashed or whatever. I would say that, in the past, last year, we received bound copies.
yeah, we have bound
All right, and I really would like the committee to have bound copies because I know we all hold on to them. And,
Sure.
we must pull them 100 times during the course of the year.
Sure,
It makes it much easier to find if they're bound.
sure thing.
All right, and I thought that drives the cost up for the town, but it does help us out greatly. The other question I would have on the final audit typically would have the responses from the Board of Selectmen to the management letter. Are those responses part of that final audit, or has the management letter not been completed?
The management letter has been completed and the
So
statement.
it would have the selectmen's responses to the audit.
That's
plans.
correct.
All right, so that is a change from what we saw in the draft form because they weren't there, those responses weren't there. So-
We'll get you the bound copies, and once again, I'm
Okay.
almost certain that they went out with regards to what responses. that
We would appreciate that.
Yeah.
So if we could,
Yes.
That'll bring us eventually to the
Sure.
audit committee letter I was supposed to have written that I have to confess tonight I didn't write
Okay.
yet. Mrs. Catili, you had a question?
I think we got tied up in 2 different things here, Mr. Chairman. The final audit and what the chairman was requesting, Mark, is when we were issued these budgetary books, supposedly the numbers for 2011 weren't completed, okay? So the columns that we have for expenditures are only like half the year,
Right.
okay? When we're going through this, trying to figure out, you know, what we do need, we don't need, et cetera, we wanted to have what the actual expenditures
Sure.
were for 2011, and that's what we're missing.
Okay, so we'll get that, it's in one form in a binder that's bound, we'll get it into your individual binders. And that has been the case in the past, where we've actually started with this is the December 15th submission. We'll update the 2011 column so that you have that information.
That's what we've.
Okay.
If you would, we have a great deal of concern too, because the initial documents you gave us showed a deficit for the year FY 2011. All right, and that's part of our concern. Was there not a deficit?
Sure.
And we had to wait for the final adjustments to find out the final numbers. So I would appreciate as fast as you can.
Sure.
Anyone else have, Mrs. Brown?
I just want,
If I may too, also, the town administrator does have another
okay,
appointment.
It's okay.
I just have one comment through you, Mr. Chairman, too. And, you know, Mr. Chairman, Mark, I can make myself look real stupid on my own. We should have had those bound copies of the final. That way we can attest to, okay, there is a, you know, we're going on hearsay based on you telling us there's not a substantial amount.
Through the chair.
I think go through the chair.
He can go through this. I'm good. I'm all set. I understand Don's point, and you know what, they came FedEx like a week or so after, and you know what, they're in my office, we'll make sure Kelly gets whatever, 8, 10 copies of what we need first thing in the morning. And then we'll load up those columns in the budget as they relate to the, you know, reflection back on fiscal 2011.
If I may,
You may continue, it's just, we're not addressed by name or anything.
through you, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I just could continue, it would behoove everyone concerned if as soon as you get the information, and the more information we have, the better, and the better understanding we have. If you can get it out to us, get it out to Frank, and get it out to us. Because, I mean, we're all, I'd like to believe we're all headed, wanting to go in the right direction, and we can cut off a lot of dissension and a lot of problems if we have the information, and just the information that we should
Sure.
have.
You're right.
That's all. I'm
Appreciate it.
not trying to be negative.
Through you, Mr.
Through you,
Chairman.
Mr. Chair.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, thank you, Don.
Mr. McDonald?
You know, I told you I had pages, but I appreciate you taking some of that stuff I wasn't looking for. Is there, through you, Mr. Chair, is there an article coming before town meeting in the spring for the overage, for the overage over the virtualization project?
Mr. Chairman, and we talked about this afternoon, I don't have an updated schedule from Mr. Underhill on this. I know there was some return of licenses and exchanges of information, so I will have to hold that until I see that there is. I know there's been a lot of talk about it. I haven't seen it in precision. The project was pegged at $400,000. I mentioned this at the previous meetings. I think once you get into, and I see the Director of Municipal Maintenance is here, once you get into some of the existing systems for electrical systems and upgrades and panels and all kinds of stuff, it became pretty much a bear. I'll bring back before this committee any overages, if there are any, to not only this body, but to the Board of Selectmen. We pegged the project what we thought it would be. Many of people on this table attended the Mass Municipal Association. It is extremely important that we upgrade our technology, and if there are overages or anything like that, I'll bring it back before this body and keep you updated. Might even ask for a Finance Committee transfer if that's the case.
Through you, Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. McDonald.
In the budget, there's money put aside in the next 3 years for licenses, which were included in the original article at town meeting.
Yes.
And that is an overage. That is money that should have been paid from the very beginning, and it wasn't. So now you have, if it's in the operating budget, and I'm not sure whether that's an issue or not, whether it's in the operating budget, but what it is it's over and above what was appropriated. So therefore, there should be something coming back for that. It's not electrical, it's Microsoft licenses.
Mr. Chairman, if I could,
Before you go any further, Mr. Anderson, also, please understand, the meeting that we had with the department heads, at one point you had to step out. And during the time that you had stepped out, all right, it came to our attention that there was an overage, all right, and that overage was running quite high, all right? And so it's on the videotapes and everything, you're more than welcome to go back and review that, all right? And that's the reason why we're addressing it, and so everyone here heard it, all right? And questions have come up, so going forward, that'll have to be addressed.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
if it would, but can I just address the gentleman's question straightforwardly,
Sure.
please? Thank you,
Yes.
I appreciate that. The way we've done business in the past is the past. Let me tell you how that works. We bought licenses without the ability to renew them and to keep them active. I'm not Bill Gates, I'm not gonna tell you that I'm, that technologically savvy, but let me just tell you, and Mr. Underhill will back this up. We're buying flexible licenses so that we can assign them and reassign them over those fiscal years, and that's a built-in number. Because if you buy a one-time license, and then you decide that you want to do something else, you gotta go back and rebuy it again. So it's more than $50,000. In fact, I'll provide this committee, as well as the Board of Selectmen, an update on how that occurred. Because for years in the past, we would just be, I don't know if the phrase is penny foolish and pound whatever, okay? That's just the way it wound up. And so I'm happy to explain that to Mr. McDonald. By the virtue of the recommendation from Mr. Underhill to me was, if we can put in the budget these flexible licenses that can go between users within, the 300 plus people that use them, then you know what? We're better off for it, Mark. I said, then you get my support on that, and that's how that wound up in the budget. Mr. Chairman, it's kind of distracting, I'm sorry, but I'm trying to make, the committee aware of what was recommended to me by a department head. I can pull that at any point.
I'd love to see it, because through you, Chair, I asked him point blank, was the licenses included in there? And he said, yes, it was. And I said, why are we buying these in the budget? He said, I can't answer that, you'd have to ask the town administrator. That was his response
Town
to
administrator
me.
said he would get back to us with that.
So that was the answer to that. And I'm just curious, because, that's a significant amount of money, and it cuts into your regular operating budget by having that. If it's something that we could have done differently from the start, or something we should have looked at from the start, and it's overspending what we appropriated as a
Mr. Chairman,
town meeting.
it's not overspending. We haven't spent a dime yet because fiscal 2013 hasn't started yet. So this is a starting point. I will get the analysis from Mr. Underhill so that we're all clear about it, because his recommendation to me was that if you do it this way, you have more flexibility because you don't have the ability to move around and have licenses as needed by some departments as we had in the past, that we would actually pay for it, kind of on I guess the way it was presented was it's almost like renting when you could purchase a mortgage and pay that mortgage over a period of time. And I'm happy to provide that analysis to not only the committee, but to anybody else who wants it.
Okay, it'll solve a question that was raised
Sure.
at the department meeting. Mr. Paulson?
I was gonna pursue this for a moment, but I think it's been taken care of. I would like to move to a different question, and something that was brought up on the Wednesday meeting, if I might.
Is there anyone else have, are you done first?
No, I've got one more, but I don't know that really is. That's
Then I'll allow Mr. Paulson.
a little, by all means.
Mr. Paulson? How are you doing on time?
All set, Mr. Chairman.
In this, in the budget that you presented to us in December, and in the budget here today, you have new growth running about $350,000 for the upcoming year. It came out at the meeting that the assessor, and again, it's on tape, suggested that the number would be closer to 100,000. And so my question, which I guess might be considered to be obvious, is there's a difference there that's fairly substantial. And how did we go about, or how did you go about getting to the $350,000 number, and how do you reconcile the assessor's opinion that it's going to be closer to 100,000?
Mr. Chairman, each January, the assessors, and I've asked them for an update because I anticipated this question. The work papers that was provided to my office indicated that we would have additional growth, primarily from some of the commercial activity, like the Rosebrook Business Office Park. And so what the assessors usually send to me by about mid-January, and that's over by now, I sent the chairman of the board a letter today asking for him for two things. One, a board of assessors vote on new growth, because this is pretty much a placeholder from information that was provided to us by the assessor's office, number one. And number two, I asked for, because it's a big number in another part of the budget, for an assessment of how the abatement's moving forward through a period of time. We put $410,000 aside for that. As a matter of record, we've spent about $300,000 a year, particularly on a triennial basis, meaning on the third year, the revaluation year, because a lot of the values slipped down in town, and that's, you know, a general statement, if you will. We're looking for, what out of the 410 do you think you need? Because if it's 300, that's 110 that we can put someplace else. So as soon as I get a letter back, which I received from the chairman last year on January 18th, I will tell the committee and the Board of Selectmen that we'll have to make an adjustment there based on what they provide us for the assessing growth. And to be clear, we just don't make the number up. The number is given to us by virtue of a letter and vote by the Board of Assessors. So those are two areas that I'm looking for clarification on in the budget. And on or before sometime in early December, the numbers that were given to us, as you can see last year, the number was $250,000. And if we're working to continue growth beyond the usual amount, then once again, we're capturing an additional amount that what I thought and feel is the amount that would be for commercial growth, particularly up on Cranberry Highway. I will keep the committee updated on that. I didn't receive a letter or a vote of the board by mid-January, so I'm asking for them to clarify for me what that new growth number would be.
Any follow-up?
Just this one's outside the budget, though.
Well, we were supposed to be dealing with financial matters to begin with and have to come up.
I'm a little
The reason
slow.
why I said capital appropriate, you know, part of your capital budget was supposed to be an update of all capital requests and projects that were still open. Okay, it's in the charter. Could we get that update for the next meeting, please? As to where all projects that are open, and what projects have been completed from, we didn't have that many open at the end of the year that I know of, but this,
We can get that for you.
virtualization is one of them.
Sure.
I think there was still, is the police department completely done?
The $200,000 for the communication system is complete. We'll give you an
Somewhere,
update.
yeah, give us an update on all of
Sure.
it, all right, including, I think there was also some other items that were purchased. There was some confusion at one point about 3 cruisers, I think last April.
About what?
3 cruisers that were authorized last April, they've been purchased, and again, since we haven't been really following and trying to keep updated on the capital appropriations, suddenly we heard there were 3 new cruisers, like, where did that come from? Well, guess what, we approved it, so what can we say? You know, town committee approved it, but it got lost.
Okay,
And all
I'll
the
be
information
happy to
that we
give you an
had, so,
update.
that's why I love the conversation that's going on, but Phil, what was your other question?
I'll make this one simple because I happen to be watching a meeting. Through you, Mr. Chairman, did we purchase a school bus in June?
I believe there was a purchase for an emergency basis for a sped vehicle in June.
Yes.
Okay, so emergency procurement law, that'd be section 8, correct?
When you say Section 8, I'm not
Of
sure.
the 30B, section 8, that's the emergency purchases?
It would be triggered on the various sections on the chapter.
Okay, because I'm just curious, because I know that it came up in a school committee meeting that one was purchased, and we did not approve any at town meeting that I could recall.
No.
So I was looking, and I was, so it had, under emergency basis, and that is whatever section of procurement law, correct?
There are a number of sections. There's sections that triggered when we redid the Stonebridge sewer transmission line that would have dumped hundreds of thousands of gallons of waste into the Onset Bay, that you follow a certain set of procedures to be able to get that type of capital purchase made.
Okay, I was just curious because I looked everywhere, I could not find it.
Well, you know, Mr. Chairman, I just want to be clear about this, okay? Under the charter, I believe it's section 4-2-0, I am the chief procurement officer for the town, and I can make emergency purchases as needed, you know, and it's not something that you keep hidden somewhere. I would hope, through Mr. McDonald's point, that we would be talking about this. I know there are additional vehicles that are going to be needed by the school district going forward. I would think the new action committee would take an action towards that process, working with the capital planning committee, I see the chairman in the back, to make sure that we have the proper notifications in place. But in some cases, you're simply strapped, and Mr. Campina's right here. We had to do that, within a couple of days, Guy, on the transmission line?
Yes.
And so, you do the best you can through the quotation process. We pegged it at about $200,000 for that repair of that transmission line.
Yes.
It came in at $136,000.
Yes.
So that's where we're at. And you know what? And we've talked about this on the floor town meeting, we talked about it on this floor, on the Board of Selectmen floor. I'm not gonna leave somebody at a bus stop. That's not what I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna let a transmission line leak into the harbor. It could cause tremendous environmental issues for the town. I'm just not gonna do it. And so, I'm not saying, and I'm happy to look at this, but if there are emergency needs, the proper procedures followed, that's why we have those laws to allow us to do that.
That's
Thank you,
true,
Mr.
but
Chairman.
we can also, we can hold off the repairs on every vehicle until such time as it stops running and then declare it an emergency.
Exactly.
All right, the other side is also that this was done in June, all right, it was announced by the school committee that they were making the purchase, not, the town. And on top of it, we had a town meeting and it never even came up for authorization at that town meeting. And I think that's where Mr. McDonald's confusion is coming from, and we surely know that there is a new committee that has to deal with buses. And the reason for it is there's a lot of potential emergencies sitting out there.
Sure.
All right, I think it's a very valid question.
It is a valid question.
The school superintendent said that he purchased the bus. Is that legal? I mean, should he be purchasing them? Did he go through your office? Does he have the authority? Does he have any documentation that says he's entitled to do it? And I understand he has legal opinions that says he can. The question may be procurement versus rental. And my understanding, because I saw the same meeting, was that he said, well, he didn't like the price of the rental, so he was going to buy something. It's an issue that needs to be clearly addressed, all right? By the administration, by the school department, by the finance committee, and more than likely capital planning as well. There has to be a process in place.
First agenda item, because there are conflicting laws here as relate to not only the town charter, but Chapter 30B and Chapter 71 for school district participation. The first order of business is to get a legal opinion as to what categories of what repairs or I should say emergency purchases or leasing that has to be done. And to get that into some form. It hasn't been done for years, and it is a question that needs to be addressed. It's the first order of business.
I just started going back and looking at 30B because I get concerned. Mass General law should be something we follow as close as we can. And I know that sometimes we have some issues between our charter and Mass General law, but when I went back to when I looked at emergency procurement, which is Section A, I didn't see anything about school buses. I saw that, it's limited to supplies and services necessary, which is not a school bus.
It's a service necessary.
Okay,
Sure.
it's not a service, it's a capital item. There's a little difference in a service. But you know what, you're right, but I don't want, first off, number one, there are legal implications. If I'm a selectman and I'm signing that warrant, and it turns out to be illegal, I'm in trouble because I'm a selectman, I sign it. Everybody's in trouble down the line, and the last thing we need is a black eye in this town. So let's, make sure that we follow the law. But the other part of that is that I heard it in a meeting, and this is the first I happened to watch. Why don't these things come out in public? I mean, why are we not talking about them at the selectmen meeting? Why are we not talking about, this is stuff that should come up? And we're bringing it up here because, well, I told you I got a little overzealous when I was doing the review, and I can't help myself. This is what I do for a living. But I got real concerned.
Point is well taken.
Do we foresee any other emergencies before the next town
Thank you.
meeting?
They could be. I think the action committee, well, let me just say what I think. The action committee, this was on tape from last Wednesday night, ought to be able to take action and recommend back to their respective bodies and communicate back to their respective bodies, the Board of Selectmen and the school committee and the capital planning committee. Hey, here's a report from the transportation coordinator. Here's some things that we need to try to figure out. What's the best way to do that? And I think that's why that action committee is important, and I said it the other night, and I'll say it again. I don't think anybody in this room wants to leave anybody at a school bus stop because we can't get there, or we're gonna be sued because we don't follow through on some type of a program that's mandated by the state. So my thinking along the lines is, let's get legal clarification as to what the school district can and cannot do. This is not something that just the town is looking at. This is something that has been discussed and debated across the Commonwealth. So let's get those advisory opinions, and let's follow the rule of the law. It's important to do that. If it's an emergency, it's an emergency.
But we have a legislative branch called town meeting, and whether or not, I mean, that is where we go to capital items. I understand about emergencies, but somewhere down the line, even if it's an emergency, we probably still need to come back to town meeting as a matter of, I don't know,
Yeah,
procedure, if that's a good word?
Protocol.
Protocol, thank
Protocol.
you. I'm not English tonight, so I didn't use that word protocol, but, you know, I just want to make sure that everybody's following what we have set up in the charter as we, in Massachusetts general law. And when I saw that, I was just completely floored that we're out buying a school bus, and I looked and the town meeting wasn't there, and here we are, you know? I mean, we're talking about buying something without having approval of the legislative body.
Mr. Paul, I'm sorry.
Maybe this is just the lawyer coming out of me, but if this is an area of the law that's been talked about in the Commonwealth of what can and cannot be purchased between the town and the school committee, why didn't we get an advisory opinion before the purchase?
You know what, Mr. Chairman, I know you have the superintendent coming in tomorrow night. You're gonna have to ask him that question.
We do?
We do?
We don't have them coming in.
Well, I'm just saying, it's a question
Let's
for
not
the
do it tomorrow
superintendent.
night.
That's a question for the superintendent.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean.
But let me also go back and say, we seem to be developing a trend. And the trend is, you know, if we initially started out, we had an opportunity for a grant. We made an emergency leasing, capital lease on some cruisers. And then we come out, you know, suddenly we needed a bus. And you're also saying that, well, before we get to town meeting, we may have some other emergencies like this. And it's just clearly out of the scope of the town charter. I don't know what we're supposed to do, other than to say, hold on a second, we're advising the town meeting. And we're gonna say, well, why bother authorizing anything? It'll just turn into an emergency, and they'll do whatever they want anyways.
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman,
Cameron?
I'm sorry, just real quick. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I don't know what's in the back of the police station, if you all had a chance to get up there and see the graveyard of vehicles that are up there. I don't know if the school mechanic just found that the transmission that's been repaired 10 times can't be repaired 11 times. I'm just saying that in a rhetorical way. I'm not saying that there's something that's hanging out there in the balance. And I just wanted that to be clear. I have said, and I found this to be the truth, and town council has endorsed it, or I should say advised of it, that if we had emergency, as I believe we did with regards to police vehicles, I initiated the process. We put an article together, we went to town meeting, got them funded, end the story. Well, they were
We treated
initiated.
the buses differently. I mean, that's the one part. Mr. Cameron, you were first.
But then again, who's gonna decide the fine line between school bus or emergency service?
Well, that's,
We'll do a
That's
definition.
a good question.
It can be read both ways.
Well,
So-
there might be case law that already determines that, which is why you would need a legal opinion to establish that.
They felt it was an emergency service. I probably did, rather than you're looking at it as one way, other people look at it as
I'm not
another way.
looking at it anyway, I'm asking a question, because, you know, the word emergency, to me, is, it's like coming back to this committee if you need money because you have an emergency expenditure. It needs to be an emergency. And if it's a kid gonna be left at the bus stop, a child, or a group of children, and that's an emergency. Somewhere down the line, we have more we're starting to have more emergencies. And maybe what we need to look at is not what we're looking at, which is whether or not it's emergent or not. Let's be a little more proactive, taking care of these issues up front, so we don't have as many emergencies. Number one, we're not sitting here talking about emergency purchase because we're proactive.
I agree.
We also have a charter that says all vehicles are capital assets, all capital assets are to be approved.
But was it, what my question was it just considered a bus, a capital vehicle, or an emergency service necessary?
there was an emergency service available, and they decided that they felt it was too expensive, and they made a capital purchase.
All right, we're just
That's-
fine,
that's
just
that, and, I don't want to get into the finance things,
Okay.
the charter also states.
I understand.
Mrs. Bronk, you had your.
Yeah, I'm hearing on this end that the administration has to leave for a meeting. I just think that this emergency, as you said, it's a capital item and it should go through the process. And I think, when a pipe breaks, it's a whole different ballgame, and if the town administrator has the authority to authorize it with his bosses, fine. But capital items, I do believe that we were railroaded on those first police cruisers. We found out after the fact. I'm not saying that we didn't need him. I'm not saying anything. I just think that we went about it the wrong way, and I think that we should follow the charter, follow the procedures, and let the capital program. Even if we don't like where it's going, we still need to follow the procedures.
Okay, let's not beat the dead horse too much. Mr. Paulson.
Shoot you one more time, go ahead.
Mrs. Victoria, since you haven't spoken on the issue, I'll allow you to speak if you so desire. Let's wrap this up.
I'm going to shift gears once again.
Let's stick to this subject though.
Well, I would say personally that the subject, as far as I'm concerned, is now moved. I mean, we talked about it. And
Okay, fine. Mrs. Victoria, did you have anything?
No, I just want to know when you're going to appoint me to that. What is it we're calling it?
The action committee.
He doesn't trust me.
They wanted to make a statement.
now,
Are there any other financial matters on your report?
No, I'm all set, Mr. Sullivan will
Would
be
you
here.
permit Mr. Paulson a question?
Of course I will, of course.
of course, you generous mood tonight. The premium holiday for the employees. It's been talked about, and the last I heard was that they were going to get it in back in around holiday time, around Christmas. And I'd like to know how much the holiday is, how much money is going to be given out, and when is it going to be given?
Mr. Chairman, it's a good question, because we talked about it at town meeting, and we voted, as you know, unanimously in the town budget that we have before us for the fiscal year. And it's a very important part of the budget from the following standpoint. Last year, we had certification from our independent auditors that the trust fund was pretty healthy. And we put that in the budget as a trust, as a healthcare holiday, knowing that on any given, and I know Mr. Paulson knows this like the back of his hand, but I'll just state it for the listening audience. We're running 3 to 4 months behind the equation. People are getting diagnostic testing, and people are having all kinds of issues with regard to health. And the plan from the beginning was that we would take a look at it mid-fiscal year, because on any given month, you need to take at least a 3 or 4 month look back to see how you're running. What are your run rates? That we have had catastrophic illnesses. We have stop-loss insurance up to $100,000, but take 10 people or 10 individuals that are on the plan, and you get $1 million issue. So we now have a couple of key and factual ingredients. We have the certified audit by Powers and Sullivan, I should say the audited final report, that indicates that we are still very healthy. We are working with our healthcare providers and analysts from GBS to make sure that we are. We're looking at run rates, literally, I think Ginger's coming in the next couple of weeks. We want to make sure that we are still very healthy, because we still have to catch up from those previous months. We did say that it would happen sometime in fiscal 2012, and we're sticking by that, because it's important that happen. So we're running our independent analyses, and then on top of that, and I think you have had at least an exposure to this, the law that was passed this past summer, Chapter 69, I think it's Section 26, if I recall correctly, requires municipalities to do something called a dependent audit. That's where we actually find out and survey who is on the healthcare trust. Who are they? Do they have legitimate reason to be on? And I have a report that's coming that I'll get to you and to the Board of Selectmen that says that we have at least one dead person on the trust. So with that being said, let's find out more. because we want to make sure the right individuals are on, and that in and of itself can pay and keep that trust fund healthy going forward. Municipalities are rushing towards this. I know Mr. Paulson and other members of the committee, yourself, were at the Mass Municipal Association. The hall was abuzz about Section 26. We got out in front of this early in July, press the envelope. We're going to make sure that whatever savings we can are realized in this fiscal year. So there's a couple pieces that we're putting in place. One, the key part was obviously the audit by Powers and Sullivan. Two, we want to make sure our run rates are running to where we projected them to be. Because I don't know anybody in this room or in the world that can tell me how healthcare is going to work for any place, on day one. So we're going to make sure that we have that IBNR, that incurred but not reported, pegged down tight, and then make sure that our run rates are absolutely on target, and then we will administer the holiday.
Just if I might pursue this a little bit further, and this, I'm referring now, or will be referring just in a moment to the preliminary audit, and specifically page 20 and specifically page 45. There are two different figures, but they happen to be remarkably the same. One is health claims payable of $551,000 on page 20, and the IBNR on page 45 is $551,608. For all practical purposes, those two numbers are the same. I remember vividly, and I'm sure other my colleagues here remember, Ms. Hayes saying that the best way that we could handle this is that the IBNR be roughly 1.5 months or 1.5 times the claims. The claims payable, as I just said, it's in the audit, is $551,000. That would imply, at least to me, that the reserve should be somewhere in the neighborhood of $750,000. We're $200,000 short of that. And my question, there is a question in here, my question is, given that the policy was supposed to be, because I understood it, that we would have 1.5 times the payable, are we going to make that up in this budget so that we bring it back up to what would be a more acceptable level?
Mr.
About
Chairman,
$200,000.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure I follow the entire methodology, but let me just say to you, on page 22, you're going to find the net result going from fiscal 2010 to fiscal 2011 is a plus $404,000. That's the number that stuck in my head when I read the audit. And that means that we're $404,000 healthier this year than we were last year.
Oh, that's not true.
I think it's on page 22, Dick, if you have
well, go ahead, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I'm sorry.
The IBNR went
If you go to
down.
page 21, it's on the non-operating revenues, income and loss before operating transfers. On the right-hand side, you can see that the governmental activities internal trust fund balance going forward, or added to the balance, is $404,140, Mr. Chairman. So we've talked with the auditors, they pulled out their work papers, Craig Peacock and his team worked with us to make sure that we are $404,000 healthier in the trust fund this year, going into this year, than we were last year.
If I might, Mr. Chairman, I referred to page 45, I will refer to it again, and I'm looking at it right now. Fiscal year 2010, balance at end of fiscal year for the reported liability, the IBNR. I see on my copy $944,826. I see at the end of fiscal year 2011 a reduction because claims payments went up by almost $500,000, and the IBNR is down to $551,608, a reduction of approximately $400,000. And I stand by the question I asked before.
I guess, if I may, Mr. Chair, I think the gentleman's looking at it in an incorrect manner in that our IBNR is actually shrunken down to 550,000, which is a positive. Because one of the things is kicking in is the retirees that were moved on to Medicare. So our IBNR has actually shrunken.
I understand that. That's what I'm saying.
That's a benefit.
It's 1.5 months.
Now, just, and I don't mean to keep you, but I'm still learning this. Did the town take their portion of the holiday, not the employees, but the town take their portion of the holiday?
No.
No.
Okay, so at the end of the year, if the employees don't get their portion of it, then the town doesn't get theirs, correct?
Mr. Chairman, through you, you are correct.
Okay, so we would be running a deficit in this town if that happens.
We would be, but the intention is to take the $1.2 million holiday that we projected in the budget, and that's why there's a $1.1 million restoration. I know that might have been talked about before the committee, in the healthcare line, going from $4.08 million to $5.5 million, if you look at the budget line for this year. So going into 13, Larry, if I could, Mr. Chairman, so stay with the thinking. We're gonna go into the trust fund knowing that our incurred but not reported number has come down, that it actually was reduced. It was up about $750,000 in the previous years, Larry. So we know that our incurred, so we're incurring less risk, okay? We made an extra $400,000 in the trust fund itself. So we're gonna administer our trust fund holiday for not only the employees, but for the town, and take it as a one-time charge against that account.
Well, that would go to my point, and I'll have to go back to, I wasn't ready for this. This was a new one to me. But apparently in 2013, that it looks like we're going to increase the amount we're putting into there.
We put, excuse me, Larry, we put the money that we took a one-time charge back for this year, back into the healthcare trust fund.
Right. Oh, are we doing that by raising more money from the employees? I guess what I'm saying is, okay, so it's just out of the blue, and we're gonna, if we use the money, we're somehow or another going to put that money back in.
It's not out of the blue, it was planned, meaning the healthcare holiday was to be in effect for one fiscal year, fiscal 2012.
Right.
And when we budget for fiscal 2013, 14, 15, whatever, we're gonna budget for what we believe to be the 75% share of our cost for it, is what it turned out to be.
Right, so you have an increase going, and I'll go back and look at the budget, because
Yeah.
you're telling me there's an increase in 2013 that is almost equal to what we took out in 2000.
You are correct, yeah, we have to restore it.
Because what basically happens, you can't issue checks.
Well, I understand.
So it's a credit. So it looks like our expense for this year is going down. In fact, it's just tax.
Okay, I see what you're
Right, and then
saying.
next year, so
All right, I see
they're
what you're
releasing 1 month, or we're gonna have that.
Well, I guess my point is that if we don't use it, if the.
All right, we're getting a lot.
Mr. Chairman?
This is, I think Dick raises a lot of points that there's confusion. If we could have a clear, if nothing else, response to this, it's tough to answer on the fly. I think it's difficult for people to understand on the fly as well. So I think you know the question. If you could in some way present us with another schedule that would make it clear to the committee, I think everybody would appreciate it.
I'm happy to do that, Mr. Chairman.
All right,
In
that'll
fact,
be most helpful.
we handed out, we'll just adjust the numbers, because we handed out a nice flyer with all the, a spreadsheet with all the numbers on it that showed that even when we get done with this holiday being applied, we will have still a healthy trust fund for the future of the fund and for the town.
All right, yes, but I think the original numbers we saw were not necessarily, I don't, were they the audited ones? I don't think.
They were audited from, yes, you are correct, from I think we attached a page that had the beginning balance. We'll get that information.
Well, the
again.
question is also, are we adequately reserved for this year? And that, we need to know, we have 6 months worth of experience, it would help.
Yes.
All right, we can discuss. I think the concern here is that we're adequately reserved, correct?
One more thing. Could we get a breakdown? Some towns are starting to do this, and this came up at the last MMA meeting. Some towns are beginning to do what we don't do, and I'm not being critical here, but they used to have, like we do, a single line item for healthcare. They broke it, Hingham in particular, broke it down between retirees and actives, and they were very surprised to find it was 50-50. That in turn spurred them to do other things procedurally. And I would ask that, we guess Ms. Hayes has this information for this committee and for the town, to give us a good idea as to not only what the number is at a point in time, but how it's trending. In other words, retirees versus actives.
Sure, I'm sure Mr.
That fits
Ginger.
in with the 5-year budget, really, if you
Yeah.
think about it. Mr.
Just,
Keller,
I don't understand that well. I just have maybe a silly question to Mark's assistant. Is the higher the IBNR better or the lower? That's my question. Lower is better than
It
high.
means we're not.
Heard but not reported.
So if
Me
somebody,
and Dick were just discussing that, that's how I felt, but
so it's been
Dick said-
lowered.
Mr. Chairman, money put aside for particular claims, I would normally say that a lower, I talked to Warren Buffett. He loves IBNR. I mean, the question is, should we be self-insured? That's a different issue. But that money is being set aside for a particular claim or set of claims. You want it to be as high as possible to cover those claims. I would normally say, as I was about to say, that you normally want liabilities to be lower, but not in the case of IBNR.
That depends on what you're trying to accomplish, because if that's more, almost like an accrual.
It is an
Accrual.
accrual.
Well, if it's an accrual, if you're accruing more, that means, well,
But you got the
Right,
claims
the
to
fifth
pay.
explanation, we're getting very technical. Basically,
But I
what it is,
That's pretty simple.
we have, what it comes down to is we know this when we build up
Just
there,
because
they
you
haven't
heard.
been reported yet, but we want to make sure we have enough money to pay for them at any given time.
So my question was, higher or lower is better, that was my
But the
question.
IBNR,
Yes.
the lower mean, I
No, I don't want to know any meetings, I want
I
to
would
say better, lower.
always say,
I think
since the IBNR is related to whether or not our employees are in good health, the lower it is, the better off we are, because that means they've had to have those tests.
captured
They have to
versus
be tested,
captured
visits
costs.
to the doctor, etc. IBNR says they've been to the doctor and we don't know about it yet.
Mr. Chairman, can I
The
vote,
lower it is,
can I
the
vote
better
for
off
lower
we are.
too? I would have voted for
We're
lower.
voting for lower too, right? If we keep going, it'll probably go up.
Still confused, that's okay.
My blood pressure goes.
Is there anything?
We'll talk later, Don.
I'm talking about here. it'll go up.
Bonnie has a healthcare background.
Are there any other matters? I think we're all.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, and I also want to thank you, I was remiss to thank you for working with the administration closely on setting up the workshops. I know we have 3 of my department leaders here. I want to thank you for listening and for also asking good questions, and also for giving me advice and counsel going forward. I just want to state for the record again, because we started out with this, this is a starting point, and the numbers will change, as they have from the cherry sheet that just was released by, once again, $13,000 and change, but at the starting point. And when we get to a point where we have some additional information, whether that be a local aid resolution or other types of revenue and/or expenditure information, I'll work with you and the entire committee to make sure that we've got a balanced budget going forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Pardon? I'd like to move to the next item on the agenda, is about Mr. Foster. Come discuss revenue. There, please, so the public will hear you as well as we. Good evening, and thank you for coming. As we said when we had the department head meetings, I think there were a number of questions that members had on the development of the revenue figures and going forward, and that's why I asked if you could come and speak with us a second time.
Sure.
Questions for Mr. Foster on our projections? Mr.
I'm not even sure, because I think you might have even covered it, but I was hoping to get some sort of a cash balances from after, obviously we have a finalized audit, so we should be able to get the cash balances, but that's probably gonna be a few more weeks before we can look at the balances in the cash accounts. That's not really budget, is it?
Yeah, those are also, the audit's from July 1st to June 30th anyway. That's over 6 months old. What I did was, I put together just a quick summary of our larger cash amounts and how we come up with certain figures. And just the history, so you can take a look at where we were and where we are now. The first sheet is a breakdown from fiscal year 2007 through 2013, and what I heard this evening was the estimated growth is going to be $100,000. I didn't know what it was. I had estimated $200,000 in there, but I guess that's going to be $100,000 based on what I heard this evening. But it shows you, you know, prior year levy, any amended growth that they might have, which is minimal, and we haven't had any for several years. Proposition 2.5 is a 2.5% increase on your levy, plus your new growth, and that would give you your current year levy. In the years that we had debt exclusions, those are, that you notice from 2007 through 2011, that was our middle school. There was a debt related to that based on a vote. And that ended during fiscal year 2011. That's why you see our tax levy, or the amount, total taxable maximum amount of allowable limit, it being reduced by that figure in 2012. And then so on. So that gives you just a basic idea of, if you look at last year to this year, 2012 to 2013, take away $100,000, that's about a $900,000 increase based on your taxes, your real estate and personal property taxes. The next several sheets, those are our actual collections. So you have, that's your tax levy on this page. This is what you actually collect. For personal property, real estate, I have motor vehicle, boat, and tax title included in that. I didn't know what you were going to ask this evening, so I just brought some basic numbers. Some of you have probably ever seen similar spreadsheets to this. And you can notice as the first section of the spreadsheet for each category, real estate, for example, runs through that fiscal year. So fiscal year 2011 on the left-hand side, you see fiscal year 2011, $29,743,258 was committed. Just so I should also reference, when you see in the tax levy, the tax levy is real estate and personal property. It doesn't mean that's exactly what's going to be committed, because of the penny, you could, this year, for example, we lost $30,000 worth of revenue because the penny difference would have put us over Proposition 2.5, so we have X billions of dollars of value. It amounts to about $30,000. That's high. Usually it's, you know, somewhere around $9,000, $10,000, but it just worked out that way. You can see that increasing. A lot of people think 2.5%, Proposition 2.5% means that you can only raise 2.5%. Some people think it means that their property tax can only go up 2.5%. It does not mean that. It means the total tax levy can only go up 2.5% plus any additional new growth. So when you see those increases of percentages of change in committed amounts, you see it's over 2.5% because we get additional growth. For the last, back to 2006, our actual real estate collections have been somewhere around 96.5% through June 30th. And if you look at the column down beneath that, it rises up to 98% in subsequent years. You know, so that's a cumulative amount in the next batch of numbers. And that's actually not that bad. That doesn't include our tax title, which is, once it gets certified to tax title, that's another collection. Another amount of money that you collect. And personal property is similar. It gets to be about 99%. Personal property doesn't go into tax title, so we continue to collect that until it's paid.
Can I ask a question? Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So is that like a benchmark? Is there somewhere out there that you want to hit a certain percentage? Is that 96 is within a range? Yeah,
no, it's just the way it falls.
Okay, but if you had to compare it to other towns and theirs,
the more, I don't know how you word this, I mean, Marion probably collects, I know Rochester or Carver, one of those towns collected 100% one year.
right? So
Everybody paid their tax bill.
it's just, you know, I just was curious, that's all.
Yeah, Marion's probably up around 99%, something like that.
Okay.
But we do collect well, you see that it's 96% or 98%, 97%, that's a lot of money. 2% of $30 million is a lot of money. That goes into tax title, so we collect that in other areas. You'll see that come up. Boat excise, you know, that's minimal, but I included that's one of our excise. I thought we had motor vehicles in there. When you look at the motor vehicle, you can't really take into consideration, this is by calendar year, which is how motor vehicles are assessed. They're not a fiscal year. So our largest commitment for 2012 will be the first commitment for 2012, which will be in January, February. Then one will come out probably around March, and then we'll get a third commitment around the end of the year, along with possibly a fourth commitment. It varies, it's not a fiscal year bill. So when you see collections, if you're looking at collections for motor vehicle excise, when they book those in the local receipts, it'll be all years, all bills, right? Not just 2000, we're in 2000, fiscal year 2012, it won't just be fiscal year 2012 bills. You'll have 11, 10, 9, 8, whatever we can collect will be thrown into that category. Tax title, that's just a reference sheet. That really doesn't give you much, other than that we have more accounts, not more accounts, more tax dollars and subsequent tax dollars going in the last few years than we had prior to that. You know, that gives you an idea of where we stand. We have quite a substantial amount of taxable properties. We add about 200 new ones a year. There's over 600 accounts in tax title. We have in the hands of our attorneys well over 200 accounts in the hands of the attorneys right now. We're looking at right now 147 new parcels. We're working with our attorneys in land court to see if we can get the filing fees down, because they're substantial, they're unbelievable actually, just to take that group of properties. So we're working on that right now, and we might be back to you in the near future if they can work something out on those filing fees and get it to be manageable. And that's a substantial amount of money if we can take those properties and then resell them or put them out to auction.
Fred, do you have a question? Through you, John. John, you say that the fees are very expensive. So does that make it not worth taking these properties,
No.
John?
Not at all.
So the expense to take them isn't worth what the town will benefit from taking them?
Well, there are some properties that the tax amounts owed are in excess of their value.
Okay.
Those are land below values, those are marshland lots. We have a lot of them. We have cul-de-sacs, we have unbuildable lots that were used as drainage easements that received lot numbers because the old developers didn't want to own them either. They would give the subdivision give this drainage easement lot a lot number, or they'd divide it out. It would be one of the lots. And then they wouldn't pay the taxes on it, and they'd leave it to the town to take, or whatever. But the town didn't have the money to go after those. At one time, I received $20,000 to $30,000 a year to chase all the tax title properties, 600. So what we would do is, we'd take the higher value properties that owed us the most amount of money, and we would pay those bills as they came due. And we also paid them as we incurred the bills. They'd send us a monthly report. This is what we worked on this month. Send me $10,000. And then when the money was expended, that was it. That's all we could act on for the year. We now have a different approach, and you will notice that on the next sheet. Actually, that's a good lead into what this sheet is. In fiscal year 2010, we started up with a new law firm. If you notice those 3 years prior to that, 2007, 8, 9, we were collecting altogether $728,790 and $555. We started off with a new law firm. The first year they were in existence with the town here, it went up to $1.6 million total collections. Last year was $805, and as of yesterday, it was $632,912. You see the fees have shot up, but those fees are all, if you look at from the treasurer's fee up, that's all town money, okay? All of those fees are paid by the individual, the delinquent taxpayer. They pay the attorney fees, they pay everything you see there, redemption fees, anything, recording fees, they're all paid by the taxpayer. Everything from the treasurer's fee down is actually money that we collect, but it goes to a different department. It's not actually town money that the town has available to spend and operate with. And that sewer goes to the sewer department, tax title goes to tax title, Title V has its own very small amounts, but there are few people that receive Title V betterments, and I think it's just in 1 year, which is 2010. And the other amounts are for the fire districts. We collect for the fire districts also.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, we charge them a fee for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a fee. I'm not sure what the percentage is now. It used to be 1.5% of their prior year tax levy. I don't know what it is now. So
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I'm a little confused, and I apologize. This increase here to $1.6 million and change, and the 800,000. Is there any cost associated? I'm getting confused between the cost and the revenue to the town. I realize that it's going to different departments, but is there some sort of net figure to compare, or is this a net figure?
No, $1.6 million, you'd have to subtract out the districts, the sewer, the tax, everything I just mentioned,
Yeah.
subtract from the $1.6 million, and that would be left for us, or the town.
So the 249, for instance, I'm sorry, the sewer usage is 20,000 and change for 2010.
Yeah.
That's not our sewer use.
Yeah.
So all of those fees, all of that, but everything above that
Was ours.
would be ours, including the 982.
Yeah, the 982 is actually the actual tax title amounts plus their interest, so there is interest included in that line item. I could have broken this down 10 different ways, and there would have been multiple rows of information. I just tried to keep it simplified, so you'd see, this is town money, this is sewer money, this is tax title.
I guess what I'm confused about is I see things like legal fees, service fees. Are those fees coming to us, or are they paid to the?
No, it's paid to us. It's actually reimbursing attorneys, and it's the old fees that you see there for the old attorneys. Those are bills we paid. We put it on the property, and when the property was finally redeemed, we received the money as part of the redemption.
So this service fee, service fee new of 100.
That's a legal fee. That's actually an attorney
And
fee.
that is money that will come back to us from the
Yes.
law firm?
Yes. All delinquent accounts, the delinquent taxpayers are responsible for all fees incurred on their properties.
And
We collect it eventually.
this is net of what the law firm takes? In other words, there's more, they're being paid somehow or other.
They're being paid that amount of money.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, that's, I guess, my point. If they're
Yes.
being paid that amount of money, is this money coming back to us?
No,
That's,
No, the landowner has to
the
pay that.
landowner pays this money.
right, so that doesn't come back to us.
It does, and it goes right back to them.
Oh, that's what I'm trying to get to.
Okay.
That's, and my question still is the same. There's some of these monies are going back to other entities, in this case, the 100, I picked
Well,
up.
out of that whole top group, the first line item is ours. The second line item, the old legal fees, that's also ours, because we've already paid that. That's an old fee to a prior law firm. It's already gone out,
All right,
so it's new money. That is not, the 104 is not, those minimal fees don't really
so we don't get.
amount to anything.
Okay.
Tax deferrals, a tax deferral actually doesn't need to be on the tax title spreadsheet to begin with. That's somebody who's entered into a tax deferral with the assessors, and they're deferring their taxes because of income and age and different reasons. They're deferring their taxes onto a later date. When they pass or they redeem it, we get that money back. But they also, when you're in tax deferral, so if there's anybody out there who's interested in a tax deferral, instead of paying a 16% interest, I believe it's 8% in a deferral.
Well, let's look at the one big item here, and then I'll drop this. 982,870 is recording instrument. Do we get that, or is that going to?
No, that's actual tax, that's a tax title. Yes, we get that.
We get that.
You already got it. That's
All right.
2010. You got it.
Lawyer doesn't
It was
get it.
certified as free cash and you spent it, so. It's,
None of that goes back to the law firm, then?
no,
Okay.
no,
All right, good enough.
no, that's gone.
I don't want to take any more time, I'm just curious, thank you.
Sure, you're welcome. And that's basically it for tax time. So you can see this year's been pretty healthy as far as that goes. And it varies. You'll see in that year also, 249,000 of that $1.6 million went to the sewer department for sewer usage things. So if you can see certain people at one point or another, someone get the idea that if you didn't pay the sewer usage, and it go lean to your taxes, that it's a write-off for you, or I don't know how this got around, but I don't know if it is or it isn't, but there are a lot of people that allow their sewer usage to get linked to their real estate. Anyway, that's just for whatever reason. The last page that I have, I actually had some other pages, but the last page that I have is just an analysis of the last 4 years, 2008, 2011. Those are actual figures. Those are receipts from local receipts. I don't necessarily come up with this sheet, but I figured you might want to have some background on what we actually report to the DOR. This is from page 3 of the recap, and I just included the line items that we actually had information on. There are other line items, there are other receipts, but we didn't have anything in the past several years in those. But you can see it's been around $5.5 million, $6 million, somewhere around there. For 2012, it was estimated at $5.157 million. It's just for your own reference.
Down.
Did you have one? Don?
Just a real quick one, I know why, when John said through you, when John said why people put the sewer usage onto their taxes, it has to do with the 1031 law. Sewer and water was not acceptable amounts to turn over when you 1031 a property, but taxes was. So they put on their tax, that's why they did it.
Just a couple of them, this payment in lieu of taxes, is that like the senior work-off program, is that, or?
Well, for this sheet, you're gonna have to, if you notice, we've had several accountants and some temporary accountants and things like
No,
that
really?
over the years, yeah, but
Go figure.
they come up with these numbers for this sheet, and I was noticing that when I was putting it together. Some sheets are zero, some numbers are zero, some are not. It's the way they post, or they take certain data and place it into these categories. So I'm not actually sure why you have zeros in one year. And for example, where's library receipts? Library receipts, I'm sure the library's still charging, but it's listed as zero now.
It's just a change in the
Yeah,
category.
but I
It's
mean,
just-
that would be one that's kind of critical, I think, if you're looking at the senior work-off program, it would be.
The senior work-off is, from what I understand it, it's coming out of the overlay. It's like an exemption. So you vote X number. Matter of fact, somebody asked for that number, and I have that with me.
Don't hit me.
No, it's not, it's just that, I think this, how this got broken up, and Dick, you correct me if I'm wrong, everything used to get thrown into local receipts, okay? And back 3-4 years ago, we got kind of irritated by local receipts, and we wanted to understand what they were. So we had asked several town administrators and accountants prior to this, can you break them down? And I think that's kind of what happened with some of this. That, in some areas it was broken down and then it wasn't used. And that payment in lieu of taxes, I'm gonna probably guess, that used to be included as part of the sewer fee. It was thrown into local receipts.
Okay, that could be.
And
There
then it
was
was
a charge.
pulled back
Yeah,
out.
like there was a charge for the treatment facility.
Yes.
I was gonna say, if it- being from the south, they barter in like horses or.
Yeah,
you know,
this, what you need, or what,
We don't.
at some point in time, somebody should take these line items, preferably the person that is in there right now, and itemize what numbers are going into this, because obviously they're coming up with these numbers. And I know that the person that's working on it right now had a separate document when he was working on it, and he was trying to match up to prior years. And that wasn't working out too well. So he's come up with a sheet. So what you want to do is say, please provide us with line number 1, what goes in, it's motor vehicle excise, for example. What goes into that? Or what did you add into that? And just keep it somewhere. So the next time we have a town accountant, they can look at the book and say, oh, that went into this, and this is how they were looking at it. Because it's difficult. If you're looking at this from the state on the other side, you have to explain all of these numbers. And if it changes by 10% up or down, you have to send a letter on it. So it has to be documented. So if it was 0 last year and $50,000 this year, what is that number?
Right.
So it's easier if you just had a spreadsheet and you say, these are our numbers, and this is, before they ask the question, this went into $50,000, this went into $500,000. And some are self-explanatory, motor vehicle excise, other excise. I think that also includes, it looks like it includes meal stacks right now. It should be both, or animal if we were charging animal, but it looks like the meal stacks might have been included in that. So that was estimated for 2012, the last year, very similar to what was actually collected in 2011. Your senior work-off, which you just mentioned, for 2012 was $45,203.12. And I believe that was 68 senior citizens that acted in that program. And I believe the threat was that?
Can you say that one more time, Fred?
45,203.12. And that comes out to like 60, but I believe there's 68 people that were in that program. They were allowed up to $750. Some people didn't work the number of hours that they were allowed to work. I'm not sure what the hourly wage was. I think it was $7.50 or probably $8, but do you know?
I think it was minimum wage, which for our area would be $7.50.
$7.50. So that makes sense, 100 hours. But that was where that figure came from. And that's about it. Mr. Paulson sent me an email today regarding our bond rating. Our bond rating is currently A1. That is the town's current bond rating. It was A3, it was downgraded to Baa1. It went back up to A1 when Moody's decided to treat municipalities the same as they would corporations. They reclassified all municipalities, so everybody went up. So we went back up to higher. The A1 is higher than the A3 that we previously had. Each step, right now I asked our bond financial advisor what a step decrease, step increase might be. It's about 15 basis points, 15, 20 basis points. Not a whole lot, but the interest rate's not really high right now either. What else do I have? Do you have any questions? This is basically for your information. I didn't know what you wanted this evening, so I just brought some information with you.
Actually, it's been quite helpful. I guess, as far as the last bit, local receipts is basically where you go to town accountant
Town account.
to find out what's going into these particular accounts.
Yes.
Tracing the history might be rather difficult, but at least we would know what's going, what went in.
You'll know what went into it this year. I
We know
know.
what's going in this year, and we can project to 13 a little better.
Yeah. He is a person that's in there right now. He's very knowledgeable. He worked very hard to get the information that was needed and necessary to set the tax rate. I don't know what the future plans are for him, or what you're looking at from him. But if you need information on the tax rate, free cash, any of that, he's the one that came up with these figures this year. And he's the right person to speak to if you want answers for how you came up with certain numbers.
Paulson?
We had a band that rolled over, or I assume rolled over on the 19th of January.
Yes.
There were actually two of them before that, if I understood it correctly. One of, I think 75 basis points or 70 basis points, the other one basis point.
Yeah, 2 bids.
And where did we go on? We rolled them over, I assume.
Yeah, they're June and April 19th, I believe.
And at what rate? Do you remember?
Like you said, I believe it was 0.7, 0.8,
That was what it was before. Did they roll over at the same?
about the same thing.
Okay.
Short term, we're talking real short term. This is just several months. You're at or below 1%. And that's based on the time that you have it in there. We do business with both of those banks that bid on those. They usually, if we didn't have them, we wouldn't have awarded a bid because we only had a third bid. It wasn't that great. So our local banks are the banks that we've invested money in, are usually our bidders for the smaller investment bonds. And that was capital. That was 2 capital purchases. One for the what you mentioned this evening, virtualization, the computer equipment and communications equipment for the police department, and Mr. Gifford's heavy machinery.
Questions? John, you must have cash forecasting. You must have.
I know. Yeah, we do. It's not that difficult. Quarterly money comes in on the last day of the quarter. Tax revenue comes in certain dates. I know approximately all the commitments as they come in. I know the percentages of what come in by certain dates. We've never had a problem We could have had a problem if the tax bills didn't go out this year. It's possible we would have had to borrow, but we didn't. Everybody worked hard to get that out.
Would it be possible on a quarterly basis for the FinCom to have a copy of that cash flow?
I can tell you when the money's coming in, sure. If you're looking for each individual receivable,
No,
that's
I
like,
know, I'm just saying, whatever you're using for the cash forecasting, I think it gives us
yeah,
a good
that's how we
picture
use it. That's
of
also
what's
how we use it
happening.
to invest in the different banks. Everything right now that's come up before came up in an audit report. We are losing a little bit of interest. It's not a whole lot. Interest is horrible anyway, right now, the interest rates. But all of our money is collateralized, so it's all secured money. You can't lose it. I mean, you could lose it. If all the banks went under, you'd lose it. But that's not the case. It is insured. Whatever isn't collateralized has FDIC insurance.
But you could give us a quarterly,
Excuse me?
you could give us a copy of your quarterly
Yep.
forecast
Sure.
when you make it, so that we understand what's happening with the remainder of the year.
Yep.
Going into the new
That's
year.
also, just
That
so
would
you
be
know,
very helpful, it honestly would be very, very helpful.
that's also how we plan our debt, just so you know.
I know, that's the reason, part of the reason why I'm asking for it. Anyone else have any questions?
Don't do with LIBORs.
Pardon?
We don't have access to LIBORs in this town, do we?
What?
LIBOR notes.
London Interbank.
Yes.
Just checking.
Anyone
Okay.
else have any questions? Well, thank you for coming tonight, it's very, very helpful to us.
You're welcome.
I
Thanks,
think it's a little disturbing that there's a downward trend in a number of these categories. And we will get in touch with the town accountant to get more clarification on the local receipts.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your patience.
No problem. I'm used to it.
Next item on our agenda is water pollution control.
Good evening.
Pardon?
How you doing, Mark?
Doing well.
How you doing, guy?
Good, thank you. How you doing?
Mr. Campaign was not able to be here for the finance meeting, so basically used the road to go over what we were unable to cover that day. If everybody's out there. Better. Guy, and going to put a radar gun on how fast you talk.
Well, actually, I wasn't planning on saying anything, so I was hoping that would be slower down. So.
Can I just ask one question before Mr. Campini gets going? And I'm just kind of curious about this. We elected sewer commissioners at the town election. We didn't elect sewer commissioners?
It's still held up at the legislature, in the legislature. It's held up at the legislature.
No, that's right, too. That's right, no, we voted, we voted to authorize.
Yes.
So, when we have sewer commissioners, does this mean you'll have a new boss? Your sewer commissioners versus, then the administration won't? So, does anybody know what that status is?
To my understanding, that's part of the legal language they're trying to straighten out. They had some conflict with it because it wasn't clear as it should have been as to the day-to-day. Right now, the day-to-day is Mr. Andrews, and of course through Mr. Gifford, my day-to-day, and through Mr. Andrews. So I guess there was some question, to my understanding, on the total day-to-day operation. Is the sewer commission going to have that? Is it no longer going to be Mr. Gifford's purview? So I think they're trying to iron that stuff out legally, and then when they get done with that, then they'll bring it forward, and then we'll have it, and then we can go forward.
I understand the language is tied up in the Senate.
Yeah, so that's where it is.
You don't know anybody up there, do you?
It's not in the Senate.
Not
So that's,
Before we get started, I would just like to make a couple of remarks. I'm very happy to have Mr. Campino on board. He has made some great improvements at wastewater treatment facility. And I'd like to mention a couple of them. He's instituted a split shift down there, which has eliminated a vast amount of our overtime,
Nice.
which is a great asset, and I'm proud of his efforts.
He's been looking into the energy, and as you know, we have a Met Tower up. We're pursuing wind energy. He's also looked into solar energy. And we're going forward with all these things, trying to drive the cost down to operate that facility. And he's constantly looking into these things, and he's a very positive, it's a positive aspect on his part, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And it's mutual. The help that I've been getting is, and the town from everybody, the help I've been getting has been above and beyond. So I appreciate it also. People are patient with my sometimes overzealousness, mistakes I make, and people are really patient with me, so I truly appreciate it, and we'll continue to do our very best. I believe you have a copy of my 2013 budget, which is right around the corner. I got your instructions here. I don't know who sent it to me, but it was in regards to key expense categories over 10K should be explained. Anything over 3%, well, that's my entire budget, so I guess we got to explain the entire budget. And then they had some specific questions. I didn't know if you wanted me to address those, which I will. Generally speaking, if we go down my budget, we'll take in sections the personal services, which is payroll. You'll see that's a 9% increase overall, from 711 to 751. A couple of factors there concern me. Of course, we have the annual raises for the personnel, but we're also in the middle of beginning contract negotiations, so I added another 4%. Just to be safe, sometimes that catches us by surprise. And that got me to the 751,384. So that was my rationale for 9% on that on personnel issues. Overtime is still down. I increased it slightly because of more personnel, and that includes, if you look, we have on-call, and one of the questions was on-call, and the answer to that question is yes, we have on-call. Foremans are paid 4 hours for being on call. They get 4 hours pay for being on call. If they call in, of course, then they get overtime for it. The way we're working it is that any alarms come in, the manager takes it, he goes to his computer, and we try to adjust it by computer first. If we can do that through Skater, then he doesn't need to go in, nor does he call anybody in. The way it worked in the past is the calls went to the workers themselves. They made the decision whether they're going to go in or not, and of course, they'd always take the option to go in. So we structured that a little differently, and it's been working well for us. So they do get their 4 hours. Workers get on-call pay also, and they get an hour per day of their pay. So it's different for every worker. So if they're on for 7 days, they get 7 hours. If they're on for 5 days, they get 5 hours. And that goes on the paycheck, and they rotate it. We have 2 people on call for workers, and there's always 1 manager on call. So that's constantly rotated, and so it's a constant expense. So that was the answer to that question, and the reason why I did it this time, because we're talking about personnel expenses. So, yes, absolutely.
Can I ask a question? Just see if I understand this. I'm looking at your budget request here for 2013.
Yes.
For regular salaries at $671, and you have overtime of $55,000 here. However, in the administrator's calculation here, he's taking the 671 down to 620, and the overtime from 55,000 down to 0.
I haven't seen that, and the budget I'm submitting to you is the one that I'm asking for. That budget will.
This is administrator's column.
Okay, well,
I was just going to bring that up.
I haven't seen it, so I think what I need to do is sit down with the administrator, because those numbers aren't going to work. They're not going to work.
I think if I may speak to that beforehand, we had before the meeting of this, before this budget was produced, I don't believe we had the adequate time to meet through all these. In fact, I think I even got this section from you after December 15th. And part of what I had done, as I explained at the other meeting, was rather than adjusting the budget every time we have a change, was keep the exact same one I sent out from the December 15th. And we are still working with the department heads and such. I would think that today, while Mr. Campina is here, he should explain all of his needs, and that should be the really. Well, I'm not going to tell this committee what. So I apologize to be presumptuous on that.
All right. Chair will entertain a move for committee of the whole.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded, all in favor? Opposed?
Is that?
6-0. Committee of the whole means that they don't have to go through me to ask you questions.
Oh, okay, so you're fine, okay.
And you don't have
Thanks a lot.
You don't have to come through
I
me
appreciate that.
to respond to them.
Thank
It's a
you.
lot easier to have a conversation.
Thank you very
You don't
much.
have to go through the chair.
Wow, I better have some buffer, but that doesn't, it's fine, huh? Yeah, so no buffer, that's just beautiful. That's no problem. So you don't have a copy of this?
Well, oh no, we do
They
have
have a
one.
copy of your.
Oh, okay, good.
We have
Your column is
What I
right here.
think might be helpful is, I mean, because we're working off of the worksheets, and could you run through your personnel as to who you have? No
Personnel.
working with the same people?
We're working with, I'll go from the top, myself as the Director Chief Operator, Brian Miller as Assistant Chief Operator, and then we have shift operators, Andre Anichi.
Hold on. You got yourself.
They have theirs in a different format.
Oh, okay, can I have that format?
Well, you want to make sure, make sure that yours lines up with what they have.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what I'd like to see.
Well, I'll tell you what to do. You have something, read it, and I'll tell you, check them out.
Okay, we have yourself here,
Yes,
okay? And then I have Hartmut Andre.
yes, he's with us still.
He's a 4-person step 2.
Yes,
He's 50 hours a week, is that right?
No.
Oh, okay, never mind.
he's
He's
40
a
hours a week.
full-time?
Full-time, 40 hours a week. And some used to get 44 because as a manager, he's on the rotation. We have 3 managers, so they rotate every 3 weeks. But
They
it's,
were based on 50 weeks, and then the step increases for 2
For 2 weeks, yeah, I see
so
that.
that's-
Okay, and then we have Andra and
Andre,
Andre.
Andre and Archie. I don't know these people.
no, that's right, he's still here.
Okay, that's a full-timer?
Yes, he is. Everybody here is a full-timer.
All right, Adam Barker we have here.
Adam Barber, yes, he's a laborer.
And laboratory tech James Bolivar.
James Bolivar, yes, he's a lab tech.
Antoine Costa
Anton Costa, yes,
is a full-timer too.
yes, he is.
Brian Daphne.
Brian Daphne is with us. Let me say something. Brian Daphne and Hot Andre are leaving, and we're replacing them, but as this budget goes, yes, they're still
Those
there.
positions are.
They're still there.
Okay,
This is
so-
there, and they're there. They haven't left yet.
Okay, Brian Daphne and who else?
Hot Andre have turned in resignations, but they're still with us.
But those will be.
Other people,
What?
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
At the same
Positions
place?
open, okay.
Yes, we're gonna-
Conrad Fernandez,
Yes, he's still here, he's a laborer.
he's a laborer, okay. And we have Jane Kelly,
Jane Kelly, yes, she's an administrative.
She's a
Got that right. Department assistant.
department assistant, okay. Brian Miller is a foreman,
He's the assistant chief operator, Brian Miller is, yes.
assistant chief operator,
Yes.
alrighty. Jack Pez, I'm gonna.
Picosa? Jack Picosa. Yes, he's full-time.
Yeah, he's a laborer,
No, Jack Picosa is a operator.
okay. Maureen Sullivan?
She's a clerical, yes, she's still with us.
Okay. And Philip Very,
Phil Berry, yes, he's still with us. He's an operator.
and I have James Waldron.
James Walden's still with us, he's a operator.
Okay, are there any additional staff?
No, ma'am. That should be 14. If my math's right, Chris, don't think that, you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 14.
Okay, that's
1,
it.
2,
That's
3, 4,
14.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
Yeah.
That's because they have 5 and 10, so it works.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so that's the staff. So,
So this.
go ahead.
I have a question, then. If you add those all up, it's, the administrator's amount at 620, 922 is correct, but yet you're requesting 671, 384.
What do you mean it's correct?
As far as
I'm
the
sorry,
salary.
you go to these numbers, you go to the salary numbers that you just told us, it comes to 620,922.06. But yet you're requesting 671, 384. The math in the paper's wrong, I didn't do it myself.
Well, yes, but again, I increased it 5% for step raises, and I increased 4% for union negotiations. Because we go the same thing last year. They don't factor in step raises because everybody has a different anniversary date. So I look at these.
So $51,000 around, that's what you're saying?
Yes, because Hot Andre
Okay.
at $48,000, he didn't make $48,000, he made a little more than that. So I don't know how they get
I
these.
just want to know the difference in the numbers, that's
Yeah,
all.
that's,
Okay. So the 51,000 difference from yours, from what these add up to, is what you just told us it was going. Okay.
It does look things that you calculated in step raises
Step raises and,
at this
okay.
point.
Because
Okay?
I had 5 automatically and 4 for me.
Then,
Let me just see what I spent last year.
Guy is including another 4%.
Yes, ma'am.
9% increase?
Yes, ma'am.
Wow.
5 and 4.
Boy, that's outrageous.
Yeah, well, the union gets, I gotta put aside for union negotiations, I'm estimating 4. If they don't use it, it's a beautiful thing. But I'm hoping to be able to say no increases, but I don't think
You
that's
want to know the
realistic.
fees last year paid, 639,413.
Yes. I'm trying to get you some numbers.
Yeah,
for-
yeah.
Yes, that's 711. As I look, see, because this is, you look at your numbers and you say what you say, but as I look at what I've expended so far in payroll to this point, let's see if I can get that to you. So far, I've spent about $330,000 is what I spent to this point in payroll.
No overtime in that?
No, that's everything included, $330,000 what I spent. So if I take that and multiply it by 2, that's where he gets 330, and 330 is 660. So that would be, the 620 would already be defeated. So it's closer to the 639 from last year. But I was really looking for, and I've got a bigger book, but I didn't bring everything. I guess I should have, because I should be able to tell you what we actually, my actuals of 2011, and I don't know if they're here on the born numbers.
We have 11 here, don't we?
You may have it.
204, 240.
I do.
No, that's the unfinished number.
Budget ones expended.
Budgeted.
It's like 639,413, is that the number you're looking for?
Last year, yes.
Budget.
Those requested 2,000.
I'll talk about the IMA, what we reported to the board, these are the costs for labor, and it was 686,484. That was our total expenses. We asked for 711, so it was off a little bit. But we spent 686,484. That's what we spent in 2011. And we asked for, I believe it was, 711 is what we asked for. So that's, and we played the numbers, and so if I'm off a little bit, I'd rather be off that way than say, oh my goodness, I don't have enough to cover it. So I don't, and again, I'm not disagreeing or looking at their rationale, but I'm kind of looking at different numbers when I make my decisions. I look what I actually spent, and I take that number and calculate it where I am. I did it quarterly, every quarter I see where I am, try to project where I'm going to be, know what project's coming up, what's going on, and then I make my decision based upon that, not on just an arbitrary, here's what I get an hour, I'll divide that out, and that's fine. That's, maybe it's not the right route, but that's how I do it, and it seems to be closer to the reality, to real, and
I have asked the question that, we obviously have numbers for 2011. All right, they may not be in the exact format that's here on the budget side, but Mr. Sullivan, is it possible to use Mr. Campino's input to give us 2011? We don't have the financial statement for the year.
No.
And just for the payroll numbers alone, we're looking at a 292 number, and obviously we know it's some $600,000. I'm not sure if he has the same format, but I would think that we would be able to get to that. Should I request that from the town administrator?
We can put those in there. I would think that'd be part of what Mr. Cole is doing with all the entries and such. I wouldn't take that away from him, so to say. I can put in there Mr. Campina's numbers right now.
From Mr. Cole, I mean, I'm just saying, can we make sure that we get that, this update as soon as possible, because quite frankly, we have yet to see that type of information. In this committee, I think in the last, well, at least the whole time that I've been on there.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so it would be most helpful to us. Mrs. Brown? This is free of the whole, so feel free.
Yes, I just have a question. Mark, I'm gonna give you this question because you're the one that said he's saving money. If he's saving money by the split shifts, why are we going to look for a 9% increase over what was already spent? Tell me how we're saving money. 'Cause, I mean, maybe I don't understand it.
Well, I think Mr. Campino, and I didn't produce this budget, he did. But
Okay.
he has put monies in there anticipating union contracts in negotiations and in increases. Plus, we were instructed to put 5% into our
increase
salaries.
The salaries because
Now, the difference between his budget and municipal maintenance budget, I personally did not, my staff figured exactly what the increases would be, and that's a hard number. Mr. Campino went by the instructions we received from the administrator. He added in the 5% like he was asked, and he anticipated another 4% upcoming for the new contracts.
Well, I'm not questioning that, I'm just questioning your statement that he's saving money by split shifts. Where are we saving the money by the split
Any
shifts?
overtime.
The overtime.
Overtime was $100,000 in climbing a year. Add that to the regular salaries. Overtime is still good.
Now we have split shifts, we're not paying overtime for Saturdays and Sundays and holidays.
Oh,
We have some
don't have an
on.
overtime figure here before. Yeah, we do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
you
do.
do.
55,000.
In 2010, it was 134,000, and they said it was budgeted 134, expended actually 87. 2011 was 95.
Okay.
So we got a savings there. So that's where the definitive savings is. But I can't, the administrator's made his commitment to settle the union contract. We're in the middle of it. I have to anticipate that there's going to be increases. I hope if there isn't, then beautiful. But I have to anticipate it, and that's what I'm doing. Because a budget is my best guess. There's no, I mean, we could say, okay, I'm going to be very specific and add specific numbers. If anything deviates, then we got an issue. If we got an issue, I got to come back to you folks, back to the town meeting, and say, listen, I anticipated level funding, exact, and of course that's not what happened, because we do have cost of living increases. They just get them, they get the increases. It's automatic. And we know we're negotiating, that's going to be a number. And I thought 4% would be conservative looking at what we had to do last year. So that's what the premise is, that's what I'm basing upon. And I feel comfortable with the numbers, but again,
I think that's going to be something that, as we make through this process, talk
As
to
we
Mark,
go through it,
he has to, justify what, he may change his mind too, we don't know that. So I think we need to, Guy has told us what he thinks he needs, and we've got the figures here from Mark, and what else to consider.
Do we foresee any new positions, new people coming?
no, we have 14. The DEP, that's a good question. DEP is asking me for 17. I sat and talked with Joe Shepard, and we discussed the fact of accountability. And if we can be more accountable to our time, have better time management, we're in agreement that we can stick with the 14 because we're doing it. To cover the checking of the stations, because we are looking at Multi-Smart, which is a SCADA system, which is web-based SCADA system, and that's at Multi-Smart themselves, and they get ready to make a presentation to the DEP so they can buy into it. I figured they'd make a better presentation than I would be there, so we'll make that presentation. Also, we presently have Mission, and Mission has upgraded their process where they can start adding SCADA capabilities. So we're working on that. So that's still in the equation. But what we've done in the interim is we've taken our stations with the DEP's blessing and actually put what we need for checking. As an example, I have small stations out there that we know can go a day without being checked, maybe 2 days. We don't check them every day. So therefore, we can spend all the time on our big two-man stations. In the morning, we check, we have 2 men doing this every day. So what they do is they check the 2-man, and then in the afternoon, one comes to work and works on projects, and the other one goes out and does 1-man's. Opposed to having 2 men do all day long doing stations. So that gives us 1 more guy for productivity. We're building pumps. We've got some infrastructure issues that we're dealing with. So a guy can go out there and do some actual work opposed to driving around checking stations. So that in the immediate, that's what we're doing. More, better use of our time. And that's what we're trying to accomplish. Because it's all about production. I don't care how many hours we have. If they're not productive hours, we're still paying for them. And the goal is to be, we're going to pay for them anyways, and let's make them as productive as we can. And so it counts for accountability, and it puts more, more checking, but we're doing it, and it's becoming successful. So my answer to your question, somebody's question, is that no, we're going to stay at 14 staff. We're not increasing the staff.
Okay, could you also, the SCADA system, when do we anticipate that we might see that system?
I think we're anticipating to see it in the fall. Again, after DEP gives us its blessing, we'll vet it as far as bidding and the whole 9 yards cost, and then we'll move forward with SCADA. Because SCADA will give me that 2 more guys to get back into production.
Okay, when we have new pumps coming on board.
We have new stations coming on board, absolutely.
How many stations are that?
2, Parkwood bought us 2 more. So right now, we're in Parkway, which is coming in February, middle of February, towards the end of February, and maybe in the spring, because there might be some extensions, but we should come to 100% of that pump station, of those 2 pump stations. Contract 2 is bringing on another 2, so that'll be a total of 4. So that's what we're looking at. So that goes from 39 to 43 pump stations.
Okay, and we can absorb that with the people that we have with the implementation
Absolutely.
of the SCADA.
That's time management, it's time efficiency. We added GPS to the vehicles to find the best way to track a vehicle. If you need to call somebody, you know who's out there, you call this person. We're trying all the things we can do to become more efficient in operations, because I think that's a key player, efficiency. We can just keep adding personnel. If they're inefficient, then we're just gaining personnel. Efficiency is what we're after. So yes, for 14, I've vetted this with the DEP, Mr. Shepherd, talked about this at length, and we agree. Efficiency. Let's work with efficiency as far as our personnel.
So one of your productivity improvements is GPS in the vehicles.
Because that allows us to maneuver people around without. Normally, what we have to do is we just call somebody, say, listen, go check this out, not realizing he's on the other end of town.
Right.
Or you say, where are you? Well, I'm here. I'm on my way here. Well, go here. Now we can make the decision, look at the map, where the trucks are, what we need. Well, we'll take this person, move them over here. It also allows us to track our miles. Become more efficient in tracking miles. If we're going to go from Rose Point to Onset, what's the most efficient direct route to get there? GPS gives you all this information, plus it tracks the vehicles for maintenance. So it adds a lot of ammunition to our toolbox to be more efficient in time, and also better maintenance of our fleet as far as getting them maintained and the whole 9 yards. So it offers a lot. And it's also going to eventually, we're going to do the phone, because a GPS is no more than a cell phone, and the vehicle, it's locked into the vehicle. And what we're doing is we're cutting out a path so they can use this telephone. So what we'll do is we'll get rid of the Nextels. So that'll become a GPS, a telephone, and then we'll have a Nextel for the person on call. He'll have a Nextel because he needs it, and then one for the manager. So we'll minimize, we're going to cut back our Nextels and use that phone in the truck to be. And the other thing about that too is it's safe because it's going to be hands-free. We're going to tie it into the radio, so if I call him and he pushes the button, he can talk to me. I know it's not the safest, but at least he doesn't have to take his hands off, put in his ears. So we're trying to morph to that direction. And also we're trying to have a policy we can tell him to pull over. But that's our direction. I'm sorry, we'll go on and on. I apologize.
No, that's okay. I was just kind of confused because you said the DEP wanted you to have 17, and did they approve you keeping it at 14?
Well, yes, they did. So far, they're blessed. Because what it is, it's a staffing, and here's the way it works as far as DEP goes. They take your treatment plant. They give it a grade. Every piece of apparatus, every type of process has a number. They have fixed numbers to this. Then they say, okay, great, we got the numbers, what you do. You're grade 6, you're tertiary, you have extended aeration, you have secondary treatment. So we feel that these are how many hours it takes to operate this plant. They take that number and they factor it to personnel. It's 1.5 persons per segment of hours, 20 hours, 30, whatever they do. Then it's okay, here it is. You need, for our case, 17.3 personnel. And that's a number. So my debate was with Joe Shepard was, well, wait a minute, I understand where you're coming from, vacation time, because again, to be efficient, you have to, whether you like it or not, you got to factor in time off. Time off is a very big thing. I spend a lot of time renting time off. That's just the way it is. So now you don't have people there. So to be it's fully staffed, you've got to overhire, and that's to me is kind of crazy. But that's the formula. So I'm saying no. I'm going to go to 14. I'm going to be more efficient. And the same thing, I'm asking my managers, let's schedule work. Because if we get in the habit of scheduling work, then what we can do is, when people come to me for time off, well, that's great, we want to accommodate you, but this week, blocked out because we got projects, because the plant has to eat first. So we're morphing towards that type of scenario, if you will, or culture, where we can have better control to get the work done. We're working towards that, and we're really working hard. And we hope to get there. I don't know when we're going to get there, but we're going to get there. But this is the direction we're going into. So that's for the personnel. Go ahead, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry.
Well, thank you. Just 2 questions, because I probably missed it, and I apologize for missing it. But on-call wages, I asked this at the meeting the other day.
Covered it. Yep.
You covered it.
You
Well, okay, well then
Watch the tape.
let me go to my next one.
In this 620, there's no on-call wages.
Right, and that's contractual.
Also, in this, there is no vacation wages.
Okay.
Also, there is no sick time wages.
Right.
Also, there is no holiday wages. Those are wages. Those are wages, so I'm still paying his wages, and this. So all those wages have to be factored into
I
payroll.
got that last Wednesday from, the other thing is when you talked about the skater system,
Yes.
is there gonna be any capital costs?
Yeah, there's going to be a capital cost. We had estimated to be $500,000 last year, which will be financed by the people putting the skater in. So I'll give, before we do anything else, I'll give you the numbers, and because I want it vetted anyways, and the more vetting there is, the
Well,
better.
if you're talking about doing it in the fall, that would have to come before town meeting in April, correct?
We're planning to move forward in the fall. If we have to go to town meeting, it'll be in the fall, then we'll bring it,
You'd have to-
I don't know how it works. I
You have
really
to have
don't
it
forgive me.
approved, or, correct?
Well, we'd have to go
Chairman,
through
Mr.
capital
Chairman?
planning.
Yes.
Yeah, go through capital.
The capital plan is aware, we've already presented this, but what capital plan said to me is that we shouldn't move forward till we get the DEP's blessing.
Okay.
Because if we exert all this energy and all this money and we're excited, DEP says, whoa, time out. We don't like that. And we're nowhere. So
Are they positive about automation and?
Norton has been approved. I've been asking for Norton, see, they have a beautiful skater system and it works well. It saves them a tremendous amount of manpower. So there are towns that are using it and using it well. The bluntness of it is Wareham has a bad history with the DEP, and I don't want. And I apologize. I really don't know political correctness, so I apologize for that. But
Neither do we.
so yeah, if I get out of line, please do. Because sometimes I mean, but what happens is when I met with Mr. Hubble, it wasn't the friendliest of meetings, but at the end, at least we agreed to see eye to eye, and we had a really good time. But they're reluctant to give us that latitude because they've had some resistance to compliance in the past. So they're saying, we'd like to vet, so I need their approval. So part of the job is to build that relationship, build that trust, be consistent, and have them say, you know, Guy, yes, we're going to move forward. So that's why we can't just simply move forward like some other communities.
Okay. Well, if we can focus on the numbers too, because it's starting to get.
Yeah.
I've been writing things down here as they come to mind. I've got 5 different things here, and I'll just.
Are any of these on this?
Pardon me?
Any of those on this list you gave me? No? So I'll go to the list. Good, I'll just-
A couple might be, but let me just mention them to you, and then you can respond if you could quickly, but let me give you the 5. Grease, which is something you've talked about in the past. You one time talked before the selectmen about the state having us redo our underground piping, and it was gonna cost $1 million a mile. And I never did get a full explanation as to where that stood or if it stands anyplace. Let me just go.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay, let me write this next, so you're gonna ask me if you can remember this. I'd like to take them one at a time, because you got them written down, and I'll just one at a time.
Let me just go on quickly here.
Okay.
Nitrogen, where we stand on nitrogen, big issue in the town.
Well, let me get the other one, you wanted to know.
$1 million question.
Yeah,
Grease.
grease, nitrogen, okay, go ahead.
Okay, Bourne, we have a new arrangement with Bourne, some of the details on that,
The IMA,
if you have it. And finally, the windmill/solar situation.
all right.
Are we
The,
still putting up planning on putting up a 750-foot tower? But now that.
hope, it may be more, it depends on the controversy
Oh,
in
good,
the
yeah.
community. No, we don't know, we don't know height. I'd be remiss to say it's gonna be 400 meters, 200 meters, 300 meters. We're doing the wind study, and they're doing it at multi-levels. When we get done with that study, and the feasibility is done, we get that report, we'll sit down and make some serious
And
decisions.
when will we have that?
The April 15th is our deadline for the feasibility study. They're working on it right now as we speak, I just got an email on it.
And solar?
Solar, tomorrow I'm meeting with Siemens. It's all gonna come out of the state 25A program with energy. So tomorrow we're meeting with the solar. Solar is a quicker turnaround, but we're doing a 10-acre solar farm is our proposal. So tomorrow I'll have the details. It's gonna be their proposal, and I'm gonna have it in a package. I'm gonna give it to the selectmen to digest, and then we'll have a hearing, and what they'll do is they'll explain the entire process, including solar. It's also going to include things like, they're looking into a program at the University of Connecticut down in Connecticut to work with grease sludge, so there's and you'll get that package too, and be open to the public. Grease, we're taking in grease. I hear rumors that it's non-productive, there's being no money, and I don't know what the answers are, but here's the grease numbers. This is, if you take one and pass it around, that is, hope I got it. That's 2011, and this is the beginning of 2012. Let me see if I have my goodness. I can't think something like that. Here it is. I'm sorry? The hard part with grease is cost. We figured our sludge costs in this entire period of grease revenue was $72,000 because we produce sludge anyways. And we couldn't base it on figures, on numbers, or costs, I should say, because there's an increase. So we're still working on it. So I can't tell you precisely, but we feel comfortable with $72,000 it costs us to make this revenue, which was 136 and 142, whatever that ends up to be. We're increasing grease as we go along. Grease is far more productive than septage. Septage has fallen off. Grease revenues are a whole lot better. We've actually hit our revenues in 2011, and we're well on our way for our projections of 2012. We're also changed our approach. A lot of the grease is light now. Some of the Walmarts and different contractors that come in, we're bringing that right into the plant, taking it right to the septic receiving, mixing it, and it's working out tremendous. It doesn't have a great BOD demand, so we're not using any more alkalinity. So the chemical cost doesn't seem to be budging it at all. But it's only been a year. We'll have to consistently run these numbers to be 100% sure, because I don't want to mislead you. But we don't see any significant increase in chemical costs for alkalinity. And that would be the chemical that would be our greatest concern, because it affects the pH in the valve. So that's what it is. So the grease is working. We're making money at it. It does pay for itself and then some. So when we put in the budget for the grease figures, and I think this year we put $150,000 for grease, and we put $150,000 for septage. The grease numbers we're going to meet and exceed them. I'm a little nervous about the septage revenues. Right now we're at 87. It's a half a year, so if we continue what we're doing, then we'll meet them. But it goes off in the winter, so I'm not 100% sure of the septage. But the grease we're going to meet. My notepad. We got another question. Nitrogen. Well, our numbers in nitrogen we're averaging.
That's really not a budget question, I don't think, at this point.
Okay.
Because I want to try to get through the budget.
Okay.
We're starting to run, we're running way behind right now.
The Bourne IMA, I didn't bring it with me. It's pretty much the same. There's a couple things we're taking out. Like the Hinesville no longer is a factor there. We also got a new disc. Weston & Sampson did a nice disc that had a formula. And so we plugged numbers in. So that was one of the changes.
Not much of a financial impact?
I'm sorry?
Not much of a financial impact?
No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. I do have the formula if you want that.
No.
And it's a doozy. You can have some fun with that, baby. You will me away. Thank God they put it on disc, because I would have been here all year trying to figure this out.
I want a quick question on that, Victoria. Is Bourne still paying less than we are?
Septage, yes, and we're going to address that. I can be very honest. I haven't really done a whole lot with septage yet, because I get all these balls in the air, and there's only so many I can put in. Septage is one I want to put in the air, because I want to revamp that. I don't think it's fair that our septage haulers pay 8 cents a gallon. We charge Bourne 9 cents a gallon, Bourne customers, but give back to the town of Bourne 2 cents. So in essence, our guys are paying a penny more. I'm not happy with that. So I've got to take that and throw that ball in and work with that ball also, because it'd be fair to our guys.
How about also the regular, the rate that they're paying, the regular sewage from the houses?
The septage from the houses, so it's 9 cents for Bourne, 8 cents for the town of Wareham.
That's septic tanks, I'm talking about the regular.
You're talking about the users rate.
Users rate, yeah. Is that still lower than us?
I couldn't know that, because I met with George day before yesterday from the town of Bourne. And we were talking about capital improvements, because we were granted $100,000 and moving forward. We're doing the renovation of the systems there, the ventilation systems on there. He was really concerned, because his user fees are out of the roof. They charge a flat fee plus a water use. So it's a double whammy. So people that have used water pay in excess of their flat fee. And also any capital improvement, they disperse it, because they only have 1,000 customers, they disperse it to the customers directly. So they have a different structure, and he says they're pretty expensive. So
Ours is like $50. Yeah.
But just one thing to your question, it's irrelevant as to what Bourne charges their users. Because we're going to charge Bourne the flat rate, the percentage.
That's what I want to know, thank you.
yeah, we pay them. They pay 17.8%. They pay that, this is the formula, they pay that and they're done with it, plus they pay us $188,000 a year for the treatment plant upgrade, that's their portion of it, so they.
Okay, because I mean, I just looked at it a little differently, like there was like $50, you know, per household cheaper than we are. That kind of bothered me that it's our plant and we're paying more, but if it's not,
And I don't think
nothing
that's
to do with the
true.
formula, that's fine. I can leave that alone, thank you.
I just have just a couple of numbers here that, you know, are a little bit odd. Can I
I
just?
like odd numbers, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Administrative expense,
Yes,
okay, that's a completely different increase. And also long-term interest. We've jumped from 2011 budgeted at 481,000 to 750. So any explanation over that?
I put the numbers in John gives me.
Okay.
When it comes to interest, I call John, say, John's interested, okay, here's what you're gonna put in.
Somebody next to you might know the answer to that.
So that's why I put that in there.
Any idea, Doug?
I would think the part of when John gave us his debt service numbers, it would be whatever's in there. I don't know if there's new projects in there.
So
and such, is what
I asked him, really, yes,
Yeah.
there's stuff coming on.
There's stuff coming up, there's probably
There's stuff coming
refinancing,
on.
and some kind of things, but I just put the numbers, I called John, what do I put here? He says, I'll get back to you, here's what you put there, great. So that makes it, that's one of the easiest lines I have to deal with.
Well, you also have more coming on board, because like your chemicals number is up dramatically.
Chemicals are gonna go even more. We put chemicals, we put out to annually. Last year, we had a tremendous savings on chemicals. We really only spent, we allocated $325, I think, $335, I think it was, and we spent $329. What's gonna kill us now on chemicals is, chemicals should be stable, $335, the same number for chemicals, same year. If you look at the addition to chemicals, the only increase was for polymer, because that's petroleum based, that's going on a site, we use that to dewater. And then odor. Odor is biting us hard, and we've got some deserving neighbors, and we're spending money to rectify the problem. We're looking at odor first for the neighbors. We've got neighbors that live next door to us that have been, in my opinion, patient with us. And I'm going to answer that. We spent a ton of money. I don't have in 2012 budget, I don't have the numbers yet, but we're spending tons of money. It cost me, I spent to date $20,000 engineering on Audit consultants, and that's not in the budget. But my attitude is I'll have to, and that's why I'm following my budget. I know where I am, and I'll have to make some adjustments, but I can't ignore it. We've got a new project online in Parkwood, and the force main isn't quite like I'd like it, and it's creating some odors. And I answered it, and we spent money to verify that it wasn't dangerous, that the methane levels weren't dangerous, but it's pretty stinky. Methane is something they add to natural gas, so obviously it stinks. And so when methane comes in the air, the odors are tremendous. So we've got a program where we flush weekly, every Monday. There's a force main, and it goes from Parkwood Pump Station to the manhole at the top of the hill at Oak Street. And so that force main is, the way it's designed, it's on a hill, so it's totally full at all times. The dilemma is that when that pump kicks on, that pump will pump 2,000 gallons. However, there's 37 gallons in that line, so we never purge that line. So it stays there and festers. And what's happening is the oxygen demand in that line is tremendous, and we're putting no oxygen. So it creates a tremendous amount of odors. Bacteria like to breathe, so if there's no oxygen available freely, then they'll go extract it from compounds. And one of the biggest compounds in wastewater is sulfur. And sulfur has 4 parts oxygen. So the bacteria says, "Oof, I gotta breathe." There it is, they grab it. Now you got that compound changes dynamics, it becomes a sulfide. Sulfide hits air, it goes ballistic, becomes hydrogen sulfide, which is not only odorous, it becomes a gas. It becomes corrosive. So we're treating that. So that's costing us money with the plant. So we're addressing it. So chemicals, I am a little nervous about chemicals in general because this wasn't factored in, and I'm going to handle it. I just have to figure out the budget.
And one comment I'd like to make as far as odors. We are committed to the people that live within the area of the treatment plant
Absolutely.
to eliminate those odors.
Whatever the cost.
And we've come out and told them that, and we're going to make it happen.
Finally, because those folks are over there
I've dealt with those
on
for
Lad
20-something
Ave,
years, that's right.
exactly, that they've really suffered immensely over on Lad Ave.
But they let me know in no uncertain terms, and I agree with them, and I did an analysis and really went out there and smelled what they were smelling and spent time with them, and so I called the DEP, to Selectman Cruz, which he's been helpful. The selectmen have been really behind it. And what we did is we got together, Mr. Andrews has been out there many times, we all got together, we met with these folks and said, okay, we know what the issue is. And they've been patient, because my first conversation with them, if they had a rope, I would not be here. And so they've been very patient, and I understand, so we are committed. And part of Siemens' responsibility, before we get tomorrow, is readjust the treatment plant on the process side. Because what the issue is they built 2 open basins, and they call them equalizer basins, and that's what raw sewer is, wide open. Each basin's 1 million gallons. So what happens when we get a high flow into the facility, we divert it to the basins, equalizing. And then we bring that back in over the night when the flow goes down. And that's a great concept, but the odors are horrendous. And so we were putting a little bit of permanganate, and it just wouldn't do the trick, so we're adding different chemicals. What we've done is we lowered the basin down to 6 inches. We pump it in at a faster rate. We made adjustments at the pump stations to try to control that pumping to what comes into us. And we're going to continue that. And Siemens, one of the things they've done is they've looked at that. And they're telling me that we may be able to totally eliminate those basins. Excuse me, because we're going to try. Because if we couldn't eliminate it, I was going to build another equalizing tank, but enclose it, suck the air out of it, and treat it. Because if we have to have equalizing, we must enclose it, because raw sewer is not a pleasant thing, and it just really smells. And chemically treating it is temporary, because you get this reaction time, and this keeps coming in. So if you minimize your reaction time, you can never totally eliminate odors. So we have to find a way, and if we can eliminate using the basin, then hopefully the odors will go away with it. We're also looking at a product from Siemens called Odifrice, and that's added. And what that does is it precipitates out sulfite. It doesn't simply molecularly bond it. It literally drops it out. So once you drop out sulfite where it comes in, then if it goes to the basin, there's no sulfites. So thereby you can't have the odors. So we're looking at a multitude of things, and we're getting ready. We're already in it, because spring, it sounds like we're in spring, but spring is right around the corner. And I was caught by surprise last year when they caught me, so I'm not going to be caught by surprise this year. So we'll put our ducks in a row. How am I going to finance that? I don't know, I'll probably ask anybody for a donation, but and hopefully we can finance that way. But yeah, we've got some, Siemens is going to help us. We've got some, and when we get that report out, it'll be better explained, and we can go over it. But we're looking at ways to finance that.
We're trying to figure out a budget here, and you're suggesting, if I understand what you're saying here, that the chemical cost may be something in excess of what you have.
Yeah, I increased it. It may be. I'm looking at. I looked at what I spent. If you notice, the chemical costs. The same on the chemicals are for the plant. But if you look, hopefully I did it. I thought I increased polymer. Then I added $5,000 for collection system. $1,500. I increased that by $1,500 and left that the same. And then I add this $2,000. What I spent in the $335, I spent $325. So that's $10,000. No sense in increasing this. I'm going to use that $10,000. So that's what I'm hoping will be enough to cover it. And if it doesn't, well, we'll see. But I'm hoping that covers it. So.
Can I ask Derek if correct me if I'm wrong, the last report we don't get a breakdown of water pollution control as far as personnel and expenses up to date. Is there any way for us to get that?
Yeah, I can ask Justin's going to be taking that over, and I can ask him to include that in there.
Thank you.
That's not something I've been able to pull up.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, thanks.
There's come up a couple times. There's a couple of major departments, all right, that I've been discussing with the town administrator previously. But there's monthly reports that we would like to receive. There's some quarterly reports that we also would like to receive. And I'm looking at both water pollution control and police department, and the school department gives us more information. But the first thing is to try to get the monthlies flowing.
Right, well that's what I'm saying.
Then once they're done, and because the budgets are so high, and I think we get a lot of questions on those items. So that's sort of a future item.
Okay.
And then the question also is how often they can easily be preparing without incurring a lot of additional expense. But it's on the list, Bonnie, that's what I'm looking at. All right, does anyone else have any questions on the budget?
You just touched on something that's
of interest to me, and I think to the growth of the committee. We've got an $8 million, and this really is to you, Derek. We've got an $8 million business, and I've been on the FinCom for 6 years. We have never seen an income statement. We've never seen a balance sheet. We've never seen a cash flow statement. It would seem to me, just as a suggestion, and if the rest of you can weigh in, that at least on a quarterly basis, we might get that kind of financial information. And I'd ask you for your comment. Do you think that could be done for us and for the town?
I think it can be done, especially with the gentleman that we've brought in, who's.
It is an enterprise fund.
Yeah, so I think that's something we can put together on there and look at
I think
that.
the question is, can it be done? It should be, and when will it be done? That's the question to ask. It's an $8 million
There's
business.
6
I
million.
like the
Where did it
one.
get to be 8 now?
6, 5, 10.
He's saying, whoa, he's adding the numbers faster than I can.
All right. I'll get it to $2 million. It's still a $2 million business. That's a lot of money.
No,
You just know what's going on,
It's a
okay?
$6 million business.
All right, $6
There are also
million
questions
man.
on the
Guy's a
balance
$6
sheet.
million man.
And we should have regular financials.
That's right.
There are annual financials that are sitting in the audit, and there's a lot of questions to be asked. And I don't know that Mr. Campino can really answer those questions. Amongst them ours is unrestricted net assets of $18 million. And that's a question I keep asking. We're gonna have to get breakouts. But that means we're gonna have an accounting firm that really can sit down and discuss it with us. And I think we're heading in that direction. Once we have it, we need to know those. Probably one of the biggest points is we just received our information from the Department of Revenue. So we had $2.9 million of free cash in the enterprise fund. What does that mean?
It wasn't free, people paid for it, but nonetheless.
No, I'm saying, a number was given to it. I know it's
I'm sorry, that's it.
Big can of worms in about
I'm sorry.
So one of the questions comes up,
People paid for it.
30%, okay.
one of the questions that comes up is what is that money, what's it
Sorry.
used for? Yeah, and what's it used for, what's available? The question of replacement has come up, the question of not just the pipe, and as a matter of fact, I was at MMA this week, one of the municipalities probably announced their $40 million program, where they just finished replacing all the pipe in the town, et cetera. And these are things that I don't know that have been addressed with our water pollution control situation. All right, and these are future items I think that we have to approach, and the first one will be to get a clear explanation of what we're seeing in the audit. And because there is a balance sheet, there is a cash flow, but some of the terms are very nebulous at this point. We need something like depreciation explained to us and what's happening to that number, where it's going, all right? It doesn't seem to fit in with business accounting. So we'll be asking those in the future, and make sure they're on the agenda. But again, I don't think they're.
I can't answer.
Mr. Campino really doesn't have,
But
he can't answer for the books.
No, but let me say this, in talking to Justin and talking to Derek, especially Justin, I met him today, I have some questions about money. What happened to the money? Because I don't see it either. I can download it, but it's in such a form that you would have to understand it, not me. So I can look at the numbers and say, hey, that's great, I got numbers. Okay, great, what do I do with this? So, but my point is he assured me that he will answer my questions, walk me through things, and help me to understand. To me, that's encouraging. Because I have somebody to go to and say, okay, where did this money go? Because, as an example, I look at revenues, and I know I project this for Greece, and the Greece, because we keep it, the ladies keep it there so I can see that, but other revenues, I can't see at all. And so he said he would definitely, so I'm encouraged by that. I've asked Eric, he said he would help with them, so I'm encouraged by that. And I'm hoping, and I'm trusting that Justin can do all he says, because so far, he's done a lot, especially with the money I'm trying to spend, $100,000, he was able to help me out with that. So I'm trusting. So I have the same concerns. I'm going to dig up, and then maybe I can get a better understanding. So if you ask the question, I can at least have an attempt at the question. So I want the same thing you want.
I think we have a general consensus, so we want to see monthly numbers from one because it is such a big business. So, do we have any other budget questions for Mr. Campino?
No.
We've covered a lot. Most of them are. Next week we'll have 10,000 questions.
Absolutely. But your question, I want to answer the $1 million a mile, because that's the other one you asked me. That number came from Jack Healy. And that, we talked about, I keep hammering CMOM. This is CMOM. This will be on our 2013 budget, which is quite an undertaking, so we'll have to finance that, and that'll be in the second part of our 2015 budget. But anyways, he said to us at the meeting, when we talked about CMOM and infrastructure, that the EPA has put a factor of $1 million a mile for piping. Go home to your town, count the miles of pipe, and that's your investment. So that's where that number came from.
Oh, we have to replace, if we had to replace them.
Replace, because what he's saying is that they're finding countrywide that they are replacing pipes at quite a considerable rate. In the interim, there's other people that have got technology that you can line. So we'll look at that type of thing. So there's more technology out there. And what led into that is because we don't know. We're starting our program to camera, to vector, to look, because if you don't look, you don't know. And that speaks to I&I. We've also started an I&I program because we need to find out what our pipes are doing. We don't like surprises. And so that's what he's speaking to. That's how that number came out.
One more very quick question, if I might. How much did this snowstorm last weekend cost us?
I can tell you exactly.
Nice. Somebody that knows numbers, yes. I love it.
He was ready.
Good for you. Dick, there you go, buddy. That's the one you want.
I think we would set up.
Derek, you know, just stand over.
Did you do it, or did somebody else do it for you?
Huh?
Did you do this?
I had my staff do it this afternoon.
Okay.
My staff's very capable.
I'm very envious.
Wow.
We were
91,000 bucks, huh?
Yes. That's Saturday and Sunday. That doesn't count Thursday night and Friday morning.
And it looks like labor, nothing in here, or the salt's in here, I said.
The salt is in there, 24,502.
So that one storm,
That one storm. And I don't mean to brag, but when the question was asked a couple Wednesdays ago, I was pretty well on
yeah.
as far as our budget goes and what would be spent on a major
Wow.
storm. Unfortunately, snow's gone 2 days later, but
But it was there that day, that's
it was
for
there
sure.
that day, that's right.
No further
Did a
questions?
good job.
Good job.
I thought they did an excellent job, and I commend my,
Yeah.
Chair, I'll entertain a motion to close committee of the whole.
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0.
Thank you.
thank you
Thank you
very
very
much.
much, it's very, very helpful.
If you have any other questions on this, feel free to ask.
This is pretty good. Thank you very much, and thank you for your patience.
He was ready. He was ready.
Now, what else is going on?
See you later.
All right, what else we gotta do?
All right, going back to our agenda real quick, I don't. Does anyone have, you wish to discuss the recap on the department head meeting at all, or anyone have any comments?
I have only one thing, and I'm not sure how to approach this. And that is, during the department meeting, okay, something disturbed me with the Council on Aging staffing, okay? And what even made me, Mark handed us this chart of town organization, okay? And I don't know whether this is something, he needs to prepare himself for, but I mean, it says Council on Aging is a Council on Aging director and staff, okay? The way it was explained to me is that we don't have a Council on Aging director. We have somebody who was a former Council on Aging director, is now the Social Services director, okay? So, I mean, I don't know whether this, people seem to think I'm supposed to understand or know what happened at the time, but I have no idea what happened in that staffing, all right? Or why she's functioning in a different capacity.
All right, I'll schedule this as much as I did tonight, a special item. All
Because
right, because we're also gonna have, I know we're gonna have the police department back, for council on aging to readdress this issue.
Well,
We have a couple weeks
I
before the
would
warrant.
like the town administrator to explain what the staffing reason is, and if it is a personnel problem or a personnel thing that needs an executive
We will address that
session,
issue
I would
separately.
like to know the
All right,
truth.
we'll address it separately.
Thank you.
Okay, so you can only do so many per night. Any other
I don't
departments?
know that. All I know is
Any other comments on that?
Good night.
Good night, thank you, Derek.
Anyone want discussion in the school department public hearing? Any comments
I'm sorry,
on the school department hearing?
I would like to know what we're gonna do, there's a, $2 million deficit.
My understanding is that there's a meeting next week of the action committee, and we heard what was happening there, and Jeff has proposed that they expand the scope of what they're gonna do to include not only the buses, but also a capital plan for the rest of the capital assets for the schools and for a contingency budget. That committee's going to work on trying to find a resolution, and of course, Dr. Rubinus will go through his budget process of reducing, from his, would love to have his dream list to what's affordable.
Can I just ask you one more question? And I just want to throw this out to the committee because what about, because I'm not comfortable with this budget anyways, the administrative budget as well. Okay, and I'm sure we all have differences in it that we're finding, okay? Why can't we be prepared, as someone said, and say, hey, look, this is what we need, or this is what the administration said, this is what the school is saying they need. This is what it's going to cost you. As you said, a menu. And what are you willing to, put it right out to the legislative body of the town meeting, what are you willing to pay for?
I think that's where Jeff's going with his contingency budget. I think
So shouldn't we?
I haven't had a chance to discuss it with him. Basically, what it has to come down to is that they're gonna have to cut and cut and cut till they get within the revenues. And then the question is going to be, well, fine, what do we want to put back and how are we going to fund it? And that's the key question.
And I have areas that I feel are fat here, and I'm sure everyone else has their own opinions as well. So why can't we, as an organization here, as the finance committee, do this?
We can recommend amendments to the budget.
But
we don't have, do we honestly believe that we have the expertise to go in and do departmental budgets over again? And I mean right down to the point of, you want to say, okay, how much is the new town accountant going to cost us? Well, how many of us are out in the marketplace talking to personnel people, et cetera, to find out what's available?
That's not what, I don't think any of us are referring to that.
No, but I'm telling you, there's a big difference. If I come down to laborers, they come down to carpenters, they come to mechanics, we don't have the expertise that equal to what the department heads have, et cetera. All right, and the problem is that, the day-to-day is what has to be handled, and it has to be handled by the town administrator and the department heads. Now, I think we have a right to say, well, fine, you want to cut 3 people or something? What does that mean? All right, and then I agree with you fully that it should go back to town meetings saying, okay, right, we have to do something. Now, I'm not going to try to tell the town administrator, I don't think we should be trying to tell the town administrator or the superintendent how to do their jobs. I think we can look at it and say, we don't agree with that, we think it could be done something different, but we haven't even heard what they're willing to put on the table yet. And we have to, unfortunately, take the time to let them put it on the table. I think what we need to do is we need to demand that we receive it much sooner than we received it in the past. It's that simple. We need it as fast as they can get it. And, that comes up to this meeting that they're going to have next Tuesday where these committees are coming together. Now, they had that meeting the other night. FinCom is not there, other than a suggestion has come up, well, maybe we should send an advisory person. That came out of the school committee. But last night, when the Board of Selectmen discussed it again, there's no mention of the FinCom. That's fine. I think our role of standing back and looking at what they send us and putting our opinion forward on that, or going through the due diligence at that point, is the right way to go. Versus sending one person there who's trying to, who's not gonna have any input, any vote, any say, all right? And then somebody coming back and saying, well, somebody was sitting in a chair, so they must approve it. I think the thing is, we said before, that our original letter that we sent, when you're ready, you have a plan, come back to us as fast as you can. That's my opinion, I don't know anyone else feels about it. Bonnie?
I got two things. One is as far as the school committee, the meeting went, I found it very interesting that the superintendent's budget, okay, included a new program, okay? Now, I did hear in the news about the MCAS was going out the door, that was going to be the end of it, and they're going to go with a multi-state testing program. So I understand him wanting to get that up to speed in the next 2 years. However, that was his focus, was instituting those plans in his intervention, etc., when the biggest complaint, okay, of the room was capital expenses, capital problems, okay? And his budget didn't include any of that. So I think they not only have a $2 million problem, they've got more than a $2 million problem.
There's no issues of us about it. They have a huge problem on the capital side.
Yes.
What they were trying to explain the other night, though, was the fact, first off, there's a state minimum that we're gonna have to spend, and we've got to get to that number first.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I've seen on some side conversations, we're not near that number, all right? So that's like a little thing over in the corner that we haven't really talked about yet. And when they come back out of this committee, they're gonna have to deal with that. And that does not include capital. That's just a simple case of running the classrooms, all right, et cetera. Now, do we have other problems? We have leaky roofs, we have ceilings that are falling down. I did a physical tour with Dr. Rabinowitz in early December of all the buildings, all right? And they have a lot of work, and they know it, and they're looking to put forward a capital plan. And that's one of, as I said, this committee now that is going to meet this coming Tuesday is not only going to talk about the buses, which everyone's aware, but they're also going to talk about the capital repairs, et cetera, that need to be done and what it's going to take to do it. Now, there's also a situation of there's renovation to be done in another school, et cetera. They had a meeting tonight, so I'm pretty sure they've already announced it. All right, we were notified by the state today that the Minot School project can go forward. All right, to see if the state will put up half the cost of completely renovating or rebuilding or whatever. We don't know where that stands right now. The study alone is $500,000. We'll probably take an override to get to. So they're working on it, but I also understand that there's repairs that need to be done to the high school that are also, the state has said,
The roof.
okay, the roof particularly, all right, that part of, they will help out. But the school's gonna have to spend some money up front to tell them what actually needs to be done, et cetera. So they're trying to work on a capital program, but you're right, the capital program that is required is gonna be millions of dollars. And I'm not talking about even building or renovating the minor, put that aside, you're still looking at, the buses are gonna run some $3-4 million, and then on top of that, you probably have $1 million worth of repairs. That we do nothing, if we don't even begin to talk about renovation.
They should have people taking care of buildings that know how to take care of buildings. They build them and they don't do any maintenance on them.
No, those buildings are old.
21 years, of course you're gonna need a roof. A professional would know that. These people
But
are
I'm saying,
managing their roof.
if you go around and look at most of the, like, all the elementary schools,
Oh, I
you
know
walk in, the
that.
plaques are there, the plaques are, 40, 50 years.
Oh, I know.
That's part of it. So you're right, there's a huge problem there, and we haven't addressed it.
And the other half of
But we also have the thing that, remember, our selectmen basically said, they're not really interested in even approaching an override. And
No,
debt
they're
exclusion, they're not sure about, everybody was shocked. Oh my God. And the thing is I don't know where this money's supposed to be coming from. The state's not putting up the 80-90% that it used to. The best they'll do is 50, but you have to lay out $500,000 first to even qualify. Or you can say no, and we're going to have 270 days. And if we can't come up with the money in 270 days, we drop to the bottom of the list for all our schools, as far as the state's concerned.
the other half of what I was going to ask is, I don't know how you guys want to structure this, like moving forward as far as the budget goes. I mean, I understand some of Donna's comments, And there are like a few things that maybe we should go department by department and kind of pass it around the table, what we all feel as though is a plus or a minus, and get the consensus of the committee of, do we like the budget the way it looks at, I mean, by department, is this department okay, is this another department you don't agree with his program? And that kind of thing, just pass it around the table. Because I certainly have opinions on certain areas that I feel as though he's totally lost the battle.
All right, one of the questions that I have is we had developed a question of some, and we could add more questions. We already have a question, a list of some 45 questions. It's pretty in-depth.
Questions to who?
That we were hoping to cover the initial department meetings, was the list I put together. All right, and I think I sent it to everybody.
I understand,
Right,
I wasn't talking about
and
that.
some people have given me additional questions to add to it. And my suggestion is that, yeah, we go through and we can put it in department by department and go back to the town administrator and say that these are the issues that we wish to address. But remember one thing too, right now, I don't think either one of them has a budget, either the town or the school. So do we progress tomorrow morning with something, only to know that it's going to come back very dramatically changed? All right, or do we push to get the data as fast as possible so that we can also go back and say, you know what, we think this needs to be cut, that doesn't need to be cut, etc. And we do have the right of First Amendment, you know, and there's been some discussions, do we come up with an alternative budget?
No, I don't.
Who's going to do the work?
It's never been a good idea. We need to go in, I'll say this every year, we need to go in as a group with the town administrator and a planner behind it.
That's not gonna happen.
It did happen before, but I don't think we're gonna sit there at the last minute and say, well, we gotta pull this out, we gotta pull that out, add that. We're just, I'm not that experienced enough to do it.
Well,
Larry?
interesting enough, I know a little bit about budgets, but I think my esteemed colleague across the table once told me something about the cost of, I guess it's benefits cost comes down the road. So eventually it'll come back to roost. And that's what we're doing right now with capital. It's coming back to roost, and it's coming back in a big way in the school system because we don't plan ahead. We look to kick the can down the road, and it is coming back in a big way. And I'll get in more into this design committee thing later, but I don't think, here's my problem with the budget process from our standpoint. I don't necessarily, I do agree, I don't want to build an entirely different budget than the town administrator, but our job is to advise town meeting on what we think is appropriate and what's not. So I kind of agree with Bonnie that somewhere down the line, we need to say, we don't agree with these items, because I can guarantee you this year, there'll be people coming up to the microphone trying to zero line items or change line items out there on the floor. And I think that to speed up town meeting, which I'm sure our moderator would really enjoy, maybe we could cut some of those things off at the pass. And I don't mean this politically or vindictively. I think we need to be one voice, come out and say, these are the things we recommend changes to the budget. I don't think we need 7.5 pages or 300 pages of changes, but if we see something that is blatantly we don't agree with, it is our duty, I think, per charter, for us to come out and say this, we don't agree with it, we recommend this change. So I don't agree with putting a new budget together, but there are certain things we could look at from an operational standpoint. And I also think, I don't know if we do it this year or when we do it, but we need to address capital and how we fund for capital. I know people don't like overrides, people don't like debt exclusions, but I gotta tell you, we got a lot of infrastructure needs, we got a lot of school needs, and we gotta address it sooner than later.
Good, Don?
Frank, I have a question. Why don't we, this might sound too simple or be too stupid, but you take everyone's budget, you figure out how much you want to put towards capital, how much you want to maybe put back to the school, and just take every department and cut them by a certain percentage.
You can't, you don't have enough department, you don't have enough operating expenses to cut it.
What I'm saying is, you know what money, say everyone decides you want to put so much into capital. But what percentage of everyone's budget will come up with that figure? 3%, 5%? You cut everyone across the board, put that money into capital.
I'm listening,
Okay, and do the same for other things. It might sound simple, but simplifying this could be an easier route for everyone to go through, rather than go through every page and say, this looks like it's too much money, cut this, but don't cut that. You gotta do a cut across the board, equal percentages, to make it fly.
Yeah, but it's not, because it's either gonna be personnel or.
There's two departments. There's two
I know
departments.
there's two big departments, I understand that. And maybe if the department isn't so high, you don't cut it. But I think you need to cut across the board. I really do.
I think you got two different issues going on here. One thing is operations, the other is capital. The big issue here is not going back and cutting budgets because we want more capital. It's simply an issue of not having enough revenue. So how do we generate more revenue? Because you can only cut so far, and then you lose whatever. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke and tell you that the budgets are already at bare minimum, because there's fat in budgets. There
A lot
always
of
is.
fat.
But even if you cut those down, you're not going to realize enough. You're going to lose services, and you're not going to realize enough to offset what you're going to get out of it.
But the money we're looking to gain is the only way is to raise taxes, and they're not going to let you raise taxes in this time. All the other numbers of revenue we have is peanuts. You look at the revenue sheet and tell me where most of your money is.
Okay, well let me go this another direction. If you want to increase revenue in this town, people are going to make hard decisions. Number one, we are in a downward spiral. If you take a look at it, we're in a downward spiral. There's no way of correcting that right now with where we're standing. So somewhere along the line, those two words, override and debt exclusion, are going to come up again and again. And somewhere, people are either going to decide that they agree with those. Well, if they don't agree with them, our school system will continue down. You'll see the max exodus, and next thing you know, you'll be sitting in a ghost town. If that's what you want, that's what will happen. Somewhere along the line, you're not going to get it out of your operating budget. You have a $60 million, $65 million operating budget. You got over $90 million of capital needs. It's not a workable solution.
There's also you gotta look at some other things in this too. First off, the first thing always comes down to, let's cut payroll dollars, or let's cut people. All right, and this came up before with the unemployment side of it, okay? For every two persons you lay off a third one just to pay the unemployment for all three. And you don't see it until the federal the federal unemployment runs out, which is 99 weeks away. So we're a couple of years out. And those are the biggest expenses that we can cut, all right, is payroll. But we don't really cut it. And not only that, but then it's huge service cuts that occur when you do that. Now, the largest departments that have people, well, the school system is obviously the largest one, all right? And we're highly accountable for that at the state and federal levels, all right? If you don't believe me, we know at least one school system that just recently has been taken over, all right? And the state will come in and they'll do whatever they darn well please, and they'll use exactly the thing that you're saying. And then the question is what services just vanish, right, with no just cause? So we have to try to find a creative way to deal with the issue. Now, part of the problem is towns across the state. When we were at the MMA this weekend, everyone that was in the room that I went to on capital planning says the same thing. You have to put 5% a year aside for your capital planning. Now that includes your debt exclusion, etc. And somebody raised their hand and said, our town hasn't done any capital purchases in 3 years. And everybody in the room, right, was appalled. They were ready to faint, right? It's hard to sit there and say, well, we did some last year, but we hadn't done them for 5 or 6 years. And the recognized problem immediately was, if you do that, how do you catch up? Well, there has to be a way.
I understand it's very difficult. I understand that.
To sit there and
But
say,
you're not going to get it by giving everyone the budget money they want.
I understand.
You're not going to do that.
No, there will be cuts. I understand that. But to go across and say, well, I can cut 5% off everything.
Everybody.
But it's going to change.
It's going to amount to this.
All right, hold
you
on
need
a second.
this.
The next item, we've covered all the departmental costs. We have not covered the non-departmental budget items. All right, that's the healthcare insurance, that's the pension. They can tell you, they announced it's going to be $200,000 this year. Additional, it's going to be what, $200 next year and $200 the year after. This is a long-term problem. all right? There's the whole situation of the unemployment, what's that gonna mean? All right, there's the whole healthcare situation. These expenses are gonna be even higher than the budget numbers we're looking at. Sure, we can sit there and argue about an individual's salary or how much they're making, but even when we put all those together, they're not gonna come close to even covering the mandated increases, let alone what we're short.
Then Franklin, what you're trying to say then is you feel, and everyone else in here feels, that there is no way this town is going to go without an override.
Absolutely.
You say that's the only way. I want to hear it from everyone. That's the only way. There's no other way that you feel that we can get by this without an override.
I don't feel that you can. I think we're at that point.
Look, it's really simple. One of the ways to do the budget is to come down and say, okay, we have X number of dollars worth of revenue. So fine, so the board of selectmen and the superintendent of the schools and the town administrator and the school committee should sit down and each say, this is what we can afford under that budget. Okay, what's that gonna mean? Hey, lay off 20 officers, lay off 60 teachers, etc. You heard that the other day. Now the thing is real simple. You go to the polls and you say, do you want to lay off 68 teachers? Well, no, we don't want to do that. So, okay, to run the system, we need enough money to hire 40, to hire 10 policemen. It's a menu. You go down and say, what do you want to buy? All right, we're now in that kind of situation. Now, people know what they can afford, but they also know what services they want. But I don't think it's necessarily our decision to make that for them. And that's one of the things I keep hearing. It depends upon how the override is structured. If you want to come back and say, hey, I want an override for $5 million, I personally will vote against it.
I would too.
I'd be in there so fast, I'm not going to give you a flat override. But if you want to come back and you want to say, hey, this is what I need to run the police department, this is what otherwise I'm going to have these cuts. I want to know what all my alternatives are, and then let me tell you what I want. But we're in that situation now.
But have you people ever seen or looked into what a tax override does to people with a lot of property or larger complexes in the town or larger buildings in the town? They go up for sale so fast your eyeballs spin. Okay? You have people now selling real estate and moving on because of the tax is too high.
I hate to sound cold, but you know how fast real estate will sell right now?
It's not selling right now. Well, no, excuse me, commercial real estate in the town is selling. But what I'm saying is, there's two sides to that override coin.
But it'll sell, as Larry said, it's going to sell a heck of a lot faster if you don't have police coverage, if you don't have schools that people can educate their children in.
Exactly.
But, okay, everyone is saying that we can't educate the kids in school. It's 46% of our revenue.
Okay.
That's right.
46% of our revenue to educate our children.
You know what? The same people that are screaming about how we should be helping the seniors are the same ones that saying we shouldn't be educating our children.
I didn't say don't educate.
No, but this is my point. If you're gonna sit there and start looking at putting up projects to help our seniors, when a lot of those, only 10% of those actual units are going to go towards people that can afford them. The other 90% are gonna be market value, and they're not gonna be able to afford them. And then you're gonna say, I don't want an override, because I don't really wanna help the school. Here's the deal. If you have 50% of our children, you heard it the other night, are on free lunch or reduced lunch at the school. That percentage is not lost on me. You know what that means?
Take it away, make it buy lunch.
No, we're gonna, those kids deserve,
I want my lunch.
well, let me finish. Those kids deserve as much of an education as my child does. They deserve that. But how do you fix that number? This is how you fix the number. You don't take it away from kids, you don't make them hungry. You build a school system that's progressive, that people come from out of town that want to get away from the city and they're middle class, affluent, or whatever. They move into this town because our school system is worth moving into town for.
Absolutely.
They put their kids in our school. They put themselves on the tax roll. They increase. It's not true. They increase the local receipts and.
Absolutely.
You are so far away from that scenario.
Yeah.
You'll never reach it in your lifetime, sir.
Well,
never.
I don't
So-
think that we're at that point talking about such broad progressive. We're just talking about like how deep we are in the hole, and now we're talking about bringing in.
Forget it.
But you got to get there.
You'll
That's how
never
you
get
get
there.
there. You start.
But let's go back to the other side. Let's go back to where we truly are. Nobody wants an override. Nobody on this committee wants an override. My question really simple is, and it's not just a flat number, how much do you want to cut? How much do you want to cut?
And we have a need. Now, you have to eliminate that need to what it has to be. Now, whether or not you say we need, whatever number you say we need $30 million in capital. Well, that need is probably gonna get exaggerated. Drop it down to maybe a little more realistic number that you can work with for a few years, okay? You need to figure out what you need to come up with at the bare minimum and come up with it, but I just don't think override taxes is the way to go.
The other side, I'll ask you to look at one number. Go to the Department of Revenue and look at where we stand as far as, they rate taxes from highest to lowest.
Okay.
There's 344 towns in the.
Where are we right now on that?
315.
So you believe
If
that
I go back and adjust for the fire departments, all right, which I think you have to, I get to 295.
okay, but you also have to look at the revenue, you have to look at the income of the people compared to the taxes. It's a lot more important than just where you are on the tax level.
So,
Am I right or wrong?
so how do you fix that? Tell me how you fix that.
All right, this is gonna be a long process, obviously.
Save the money on school.
And one of the things we need, we can't cut the
I
data.
don't want to be competitive, I'm just.
Let's try to come back to it. Really, it's up to the town administrator, it's up to the superintendent of schools. They have to bring to us their bare bone budgets. Once we have that, then the next question is what's beyond the bare bones? Are there additional cuts, or do we find a way to get additional revenues? And you're right, there are no fees, permits, or anything else that's gonna raise any serious money.
No, there isn't.
Right, and we have to find a way to put it to the citizens of the town, how do you wanna pay for this? But I'll also tell you, remember, half of the people who are property owners in this town, it's not half, it's a third,
Don't live here.
don't live here.
That's right. They can vacation anywhere.
To the, I was surprised, and when Guy said that the department heads were told to build in a 5% wage increase
That's right.
on top of step increases.
Yeah.
And in this day and age,
That's a huge number.
it is a huge number, and if you're talking about, what we have to do is to say to the town administrator, you can't be building in 5% wage increases, and you're gonna have to deal with the unions on that, but you've got the step increases built in.
We have to be saying that to the Board of Selectmen,
And
because
so
they
the
set the
selectmen-
policy.
No, I'm-
Once they set the policy, he has to do
Why
it.
don't we,
It's that simple.
can we have a meeting with the Board of Selectmen? Or is that something we don't wanna do at this
So,
point?
I mean,
Well, like I said, they have what's coming up on Tuesday. We have to, it's up to you, folks. What do you want, what you
My
want to
issue
do?
is, there was probably things we brought up tonight that I saw a little, I don't know that they knew
No,
everything.
they didn't.
And if they didn't know it, then why don't they know it? And maybe this is a time for us to sit down and look. I'm not saying that it's the best thing to do in the world, but if you guys want to, I'm all for meeting with them. Because we argue well together, I can't imagine adding another 5 people to this.
I'm listening.
I'll make a motion that we schedule a meeting with a joint meeting with the.
I don't know if they'll.
We request.
I request a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen. I don't know what date, someone else, to discuss the
Is that possible? Is that
2013
possible,
budget
Frank?
and, maybe set up a ring for Dom and I or something. I don't.
I just have opinions.
Well,
Is that something we can do, Brian?
Sure, we can request any meeting to sit down and discuss.
Do you think it'll be
A
beneficial?
workshop or whatever, or, pardon?
Think it'll be beneficial?
They are the only people that can put that exclusions and overrides on the ballot to begin with.
Yes, I think they need
Right?
to know.
Pardon?
Oh, I'm sorry, I made a motion, I'm looking for a second.
Oh, I'm sorry, you got a second. Is it possible? Anything's possible, but they can also decline.
Yeah, they can decline, but you know what, the thing is, there was things brought up tonight that they are not, I don't think that they're aware of, number one. Number two, we're here, this is it. We're gonna have to start doing something, and if we choose one way, we'll pay for that, and if we choose another way, we'll pay for that.
I would vote against going together with the selectmen, but for a somewhat different reason than you might think. The selectmen last night tried to force draft the capital planning committee to come before them, and I would like I personally don't want to see us helping to set a precedent in any way, because we have unique powers, as do other committees. I think if we should talk to the selectman, or a select man, and let Frank talk to his counterparts and say, this is really a serious issue, or a set of serious issues, and try to handle it that way.
Well, they were requiring that other board to come forward. We're not requiring them, we're just requesting a meeting with them. It's a different situation, I think.
Do you think that there's going to be something productive out of that, or is it going to be a lot of back and forth and posturing?
You know what it's gonna be, Larry.
I know, but you know what?
Yeah.
Look, somewhere along the line, we do have a lot of power, but I think no offense, we have we've got a lot of brain power going on here, and I think we have a lot of good ideas, and maybe they'll listen to us. Okay, I'm an optimist, what can I tell you? I just would like to sit down and ask them the question.
I think we might have a couple that would listen to us, or 2 or 3 listen to us, but I do know.
Three's the magic number, just for the record.
I know, but I'm just telling you,
Listening and acting is 2 different things.
it's not.
Well, we're not politicians, we didn't get
No,
voted in.
we're business people.
Right, and we didn't get voted in, so we
We're
don't.
business people, and that's why people should listen to us. We have nothing, we're not politically motivated, but
I'm not gonna gain anything
But
out
if
of it.
it's about making, like you said, making them aware, maybe a written format about our concerns or requesting their
There you
points
go.
of view is a little bit simpler, not.
yeah, it would be a lot simpler.
Simpler is much better.
I'm open to it, I just made the motion as,
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed?
Man, I
Man,
just got
that
blown out of the line.
one in favor?
I don't want to waste my time.
Not either.
I was there.
All right, we do need to cover non-departmental
Maybe
budgets. The numbers that are there for pensions, for healthcare, for overlay, all those types of items. I'd like to do that at our next meeting. The town administrator come in and go over all those items. All right, and those, you're gonna be shocked at the size of some of those items as well. All right, I want to move right along because we're getting over the warrant articles. There will be a number of other additional warrant articles. With what's coming up with the line school, the school department will have to put an article in for special election for probably a debt exclusion. It's also my understanding that the library will be putting in a warrant article for the town to assume the spending.
Yes.
All right, that is going to also be coming up. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen on the capital planning side at this point. Those are the 2 different articles that are
We might be looking for another article from the library for.
right. In the past, we've also been the ones to make all motions at town meeting. When I was in Boston this last weekend, a large number of towns requested their practices is to have capital items made by the capital committee rather than being made by the finance committee, which we generally make all the motions. I think it's a great idea. If everybody approves, I'd like to go with your permission.
I would like to ask the chairman in the back if we may.
To the
I'd like to ask the moderator, what she thinks too.
I can't comment because it has to be a committee answer.
Decision, okay. How about the moderator?
It's the moderator that has.
That's what I wanted to-
Chairman, but
Yeah.
Can
I'm
you
not
comment?
sure, you want to comment now, or should we want to talk about it later?
I think it bears discussion.
Okay, then, well, now or later?
Later.
Later, okay. That's what I was gonna ask, was if everybody agrees that instead of, it's our duty to make the motions. All right, and if the committee would like, I will talk with the town moderator and make our suggestion.
Table it for
and
later
capital
decision.
planning, because, well, it also gives them the ability, since they made the motion, they have 5 minutes to discuss it, et cetera.
Well, you can always fluff your 5 minutes over to them.
I think
Just
last
read
year.
the motion and
Instead of
Yeah.
a motion last year.
There is really, the impression I got when I was up there Saturday was, it really means something when the capital planning committee comes up and says, we need 3 new cruisers, we need this item, or whatever, because it pretty much implies that they're supporting it.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
Does everybody agree that, I'll talk to, no, I don't want to, just everybody.
Would you,
agree.
are you
We're gonna
entertaining
skip
a
the
motion?
liaison reports?
No, just, we had our first meeting of the, master plan school.
Yes.
And we're reviewing 6 different architectural firms that are, design firms that are gonna come in and do an overview of our school system. So speaking of capital, that's going to be something that's coming down. We had our first meeting, we're reviewing now and going through a selection process where we have a grid in which to select the one that we think would be best to do this. So I suspect that's gonna result in some additional monies. Well, I don't think it is. I think it's actually
25,000.
Yeah, it's not gonna. But then they're looking at a master plan for our entire school system. It's not
That
just.
goes over to, again, it's a different item.
Right, but it's huge. So
That also has to be
Bad
done,
lunch.
the particular study that they're looking at has to be done for the next step, which is the $500,000 study, so the minus 2. That's my understanding. Any other liaison reports anybody feels an urge that they need to speak? Bonnie?
I just have one thing, I want to throw this out at you guys and let you know that it has been discussed with the Community Events Committee on the parking meter plan, okay? That there was, some stuff floating around about changing the ratio to the CEC and things like that. And the committee kind of agreed upon my suggestion that we support the parking meter plan going forward, and that it should be able to sustain itself, and that, phase 1 will be a capital expense, and then hopefully the profits from that will return for phase 2. And the CEC is perfectly fine in treating it as a self-contained, self-supporting program. In other words, take out your capital expenses, your operating expenses from the fund first before you do this ratio split as the legislation. I think it would be really bad to be running off to the legislature to change the ratio ahead of time in hopes that you're going to get a lot of money. We did think that it would be wise to take one fiscal year and take a look at what the revenues are going to be. And then, if town meeting decides that that's more money than CEC deserves, then they ought to go back and say, and make a suggestion on town meeting floor to change it at that time. And everybody on the committee really agrees with that plan. So.
If the chairman of the finance committee approves, I'll make a comment if he says okay. The community events, when that was set up by Jimmy Potter, that was a special act. You can't change the special act.
I understand that, but it has been discussed in several different committees and it has been asked by this committee to look into changing the legislation. Okay, I understand that you can't change the legislation without town meeting approval, but it had been talked about going ahead.
You can't even do a town meeting approval. You have to go in and have the act changed.
That has been brought up several times.
This is a special act that was passed by both sides of the legislature.
I understand that, but to revoke the special act or make any changes to it, you need town meeting approval first.
Yes, they have to go in and goes back to legislature. If you decide you don't want to take the money, you don't have that option. It has to go to community events because it's a law. It's a special act.
No, we understand. The question is whether or not to go forward with requesting the legislature.
And I don't think Bonnie was saying what Bonnie was saying was that they would, for the first year, what goes on, they would bypass the income company.
No, I didn't say that. I said that it would be best business-wise to take the expenses of the operation out first. Okay?
The way Jimmy wrote that article, it doesn't allow you to do that. It says you get gross revenues 40%. It's just what it says.
I don't know if that's
Your
happening.
town could shut,
I don't know if that's happening.
It's based on growth.
Well, we can find out. What do you
they
think?
gotta figure it out, get it back in the expense.
Right. just get clarification on how this is
Okay,
done.
well, Mark,
And
you're saying.
the committee's made their, their suggestions.
I'll give them an A for you.
Any other liaison reports?
There's a motion to adjourn.
If I may, you ought, as I said, you ought to keep the leverage of the BOS. I have been remiss and pretty busy about not being able, and I haven't been able to do that. On the agendas, I want to also mention to everybody, if you want an item to be on the agenda, you need to specifically write me an email on it, and I'll try to get it on there. I may not be able to get it on there next week, all right, but I'll try to make sure that I'll keep it an ongoing list. If you want to know where we stand, let me know. All right. The meeting dates for the spring town warrant. I mean, it seems to me, I think I scheduled the next meeting, the next tenant meeting for 2 weeks from now. Do we think that's? We think we need to meet next week?
I thought it was 2 weeks from now, we were off this week.
Yeah. 2 weeks from now will be the 8th. Do we want to wait that long, or do we want to continue the meeting? Now, we have a lot of ground to cover on the budget, but
I think it's gonna depend on whether he's got budgetary updates.
You got till Friday to decide, right?
well, what we would do is next week would be covering really the non-departmental items.
I'll make a motion, we have a meeting next week.
Second.
I won't be here.
All in favor? In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? You said you won't be here.
I won't be here.
I may not be here either, but I didn't abstain just in case.
All right, well, I will schedule one unless it turns out that we're not going to be able to get a quorum. But we really should get into those areas because there's a lot of money sitting there. And I think we need to know it. I think we may want to make some requests on the pension side and on the healthcare side. I'd like to really, once we get some of the other numbers on healthcare, have her back and find out exactly where we stand. Approval of minutes. We have December 14th. Did everybody get their copy of the minutes for December 14th? Very broad-based. I have a motion to accept those minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 600, I think is where we are now. The January 4th we don't have yet. Right?
I did send those, I thought. I forgot what
I'm going to postpone.
Okay, that's all right, yeah.
I'm going to postpone.
That's
the next
okay.
meeting. The chairman has the right of
That's okay.
anything. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I'm sorry. Next meeting.
It's already been ready.
Our next meeting is Wednesday the 1st.
What?
Okay, Wednesday the 1st, 6:30.
What did you just say?
Meeting next week.
Meeting next week. Here,
Wasn't scheduled.
6:30. Really, originally was scheduled.
Wednesday the 1st, and oh, shoot,
Right.
I skipped it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?